Hello everyone, and welcome to the fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto awakened the power of the Draconite gem, becoming G the Sage Dragon Ranger, Naruto x Kira Ford x Kimberly and Hart Power Rangers. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. Dimensional Fracture. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Konoha's memorial stone as Naruto Uzumaki stood motionless before it, azure eyes acing the familiar names etched into its polished surface. 3 years had passed since the Fourth Great Ninja War, yet some wounds refused to heal completely. At 19, he'd grown taller, his jawline sharper, and his shoulders broader beneath the standard-issue Jonin vest he now wore. The whisker marks on his cheeks seemed less pronounced against his sun-bronzed skin, though they still marked him as different, as special. "I'm trying, Neji," he whispered to the stone. "To see the bigger picture, like you always did." Peace had proven more complicated than war. At least during conflict, objectives were clear. Protect your comrades, defeat the enemy, survive. Now, in this fragile post-war era, Naruto found himself navigating political tensions, rebuilding efforts, and the subtle art of diplomacy, skills that didn't come as naturally as hurling Rasengans at opponents. A gentle breeze rustled through the surrounding trees, carrying with it the first hints of autumn. Naruto inhaled deeply, savoring the earthy scent of fallen leaves and distant rainfall. Something felt off today. He couldn't pinpoint it, but the natural energy around him seemed disturbed. As a sage, he'd grow increasingly sensitive to fluctuations in nature's balance, and right now, something was definitely wrong. His reverie shattered as a thunderous crack split the air. Naruto's head snapped up toward the source, a distortion hovering approximately 50 feet above the Hokage mountain. The air itself seemed to fold inward, creating a swirling vortex of indigo and crimson energy that pulsated with unnatural rhythm. Without hesitation, Naruto's body flickered into motion. He leapt onto the nearest rooftop, chakra propelling him forward at breathtaking speed as civilians below pointed skyward in alarm. His communicator buzzed against his wrist, undoubtedly Kakashi or Shikamaru attempting to coordinate a response, but Naruto pressed on. Whatever this anomaly was, he could sense it was dangerous, foreign, and completely unlike anything their world had encountered before. 3 Anbu intercepted him as he neared the mountain. "Uzumaki-san," the hawk-masked operative addressed him, voice tight with controlled tension. "Lord Sixth has ordered all Jonin to maintain a perimeter while the research division." "Tell Kakashi-sensei I'm going to check it out," Naruto interrupted, not breaking stride. "If it's dangerous, better me than anyone else." The Anbu moved to block his path, but Naruto had already activated Sage Mode, his pupils transforming to horizontal bars as nature energy flooded his system. With enhanced speed that left the elite operatives momentarily disoriented, he slipped past their formation and continued his ascent. Still as impulsive as ever, the hawk-masked Anbu muttered, though there was a note of resigned respect in his voice. As Naruto approached the anomaly, the disturbance in natural energy intensified. The vortex had grown larger, now approximately 20 feet in diameter. Its edges crackling with electricity that arced unpredictably into the surrounding air. He positioned himself on the stone-carved head of his father, the 4th Hokage, and Karif. Yuli extended his sensory perception toward the phenomenon. What he felt defied explanation. It wasn't chakra, at least not entirely. The energy signature contained elements he recognized but combined in ways that should have been impossible. Like someone had taken chakra, natural energy, and something entirely alien, then woven them together into a tapestry that violated the fundamental laws of their world. "What the hell are you?" Naruto murmured, forming a hand seal to create a shadow clone. The clone manifested beside him, immediately understanding its purpose without instruction, the benefit of being a literal extension of his consciousness. It began gathering chakra in Naruto's palm, the familiar spiraling sphere of the Rasengan taking shape. But instead of launching an attack, Naruto infused the jutsu with a trace amount of chakra from each of the tailed beasts that resided within him, creating a sensory probe rather than a weapon. "Let's see what you're made of," he said, usting the modified Rasengan toward the vortex. The moment his jutsu contacted the anomaly's perimeter, Naruto's consciousness exploded with information. Visions flooded his mind. Strange cities with technology beyond anything in the 5 great nations, warriors in colored armor fighting monstrous creatures, stars and planets in configurations he'd never seen. Through it all ran a consistent thread, a sense of urgent wrongness. Of barriers breaking down, of worlds that should remain separate beginning to bleed together. Before he could process these revelations, the vortex pulsed violently. T's circumference expanded in a sudden burst, engulfing both Naruto and his shadow clone before either could react. Shit, was all he managed before the world dissolved around him. Kira Ford was having a spectacularly bad day even before interdimensional monsters tried to kill her. The morning had begun with a blown amp during sound check at Haley's cyberspace, continued with a reject D application for the summer music program she'd been counting on, and culminated in her yellow Volkswagen Beetle refusing to start in the parking lot of Reefside High, where she'd been meeting with her former science teacher about potential recommendation letters. Come on, you stubborn piece of, Kira smacked the steering wheel in frustration, then immediately felt guilty. Her car might be temperamental, but it had survived numerous monster attacks during her tenure as the Yellow Dino Thunder Ranger. That alone earned it some patience. 3 years had passed since she'd last morphed. 3 years of deliberate normalcy, focusing on her music, attending community college classes, and pretending that she hadn't once been part of a team that saved the world. She'd gotten good at compartmentalizing that chapter of her life, treating it like a particularly vivid dream or maybe someone else's biography she'd somehow memorized. The parking lot had emptied as twilight descended, bathing F's side in that peculiar golden-purple light that made everything look simultaneously more beautiful and more mysterious. Kira sighed, accepting that she'd need to call for a tow, when a sensation she hadn't felt in years crawled up her spine, the unmistakable awareness of something wrong. Her Dino Gem had been depleted years ago, its powers exhausted in the final battle against Mesogog. But some instincts remained hardwired into her nervous system. The heightened awareness, the subconscious threat assessment, the way her body automatically shifted into a more defensive stance, these weren't PORs but trained responses that had never fully disappeared. Kira scanned the parking lot, her amber-brown eyes narrowing as she catalogued her surroundings. Nothing visibly amiss, yet the sensation persisted, growing stronger. Then she heard it, a high-pitched whine just at the threshold of human hearing, painful in its intensity. For someone with enhanced sonic abilities, even dormant ones, it was like needles piercing her eardrums. What the hell, she muttered, pressing her hands against her ears. The air approximately 20 feet ahead of her began to distort, shimmering like asphalt on a scorching summer day. The distortion expanded, forming a vertical tear that emitted pulses of sickly green light. Kira instinctively backed up, her hand reaching for a morpher that no longer functioned. Old habits, she whispered to herself, switching tactics and instead grabbing her guitar case from the passenger seat. Not ideal as a weapon, but the hardshell case could serve as a makeshift shield if needed. The tear widened, and through it emerged something that defied reasonable description. It resembled a humanoid figure constructed from mismatched parts, scales in some places, fur in others. With too many joints in its elongated limbs. Its face was a featureless mask with 3 vertical slits where eyes should have been, and it moved with a stuttering gait as though each step required recalculating how its bizarre anatomy should function. Behind it came 2 more creatures, similar in their wrongness but distinct in their horrific details. One had multiple mouths scattered across its torso, each opening and closing in asynchronous rhythm. The other dragged what appeared to be a weapon, a curved blade attached to a handle wrapped in something that looked disturbingly like human skin. Why can't it ever be cute bunnies coming through mysterious portals? Kira quipped, falling back on humor to mask her rising fear. Her eyes darted around the parking lot, assessing escape routes and potential weapons. The nearest building was 50 yards away, too far to reach before these things could intercept her. The lead creature tilted its non-face toward her, the slits widening to reveal glowing amber orbs. When it spoke, the sound emerged from somewhere beneath its mask, a guttural rumble that painfully assembled itself into recognizable words. Ranger energy. Residual but detectable, it hissed. You will serve as beacon. Kira's blood went cold. Whatever these things were, they could somehow sense her former connection to the Morphin Grid. And they had Apparin. TLY crossed dimensions specifically looking for Rangers. Sorry, but my serving days ended with high school food service, she retorted, dropping her guitar case and assuming a fighting stance. She might not have powers anymore, but she still remembered how to fight. And I'm definitely not a beacon for whatever interdimensional freak show you're advertising. The creatures moved with unexpected speed, surrounding her in a triangular formation. The one with the weapon dragged its blade across the asphalt, creating a shower of sparks and a screech that made Kira wince. They were toying with her, she realized, 3 predators savoring the moment before they pounced on prey. Kira feinted toward the smallest creature, then pivoted sharply and drove her boot into the knee joint of the one carrying the weapon. There was a satisfying crack as the joint bent backward, but instead of falling, the creature simply readjusted its leg, the broken pieces knitting back together before her eyes. Well, that's disturbing, she muttered, barely dodging a swipe from its blade. She managed to land several more strikes, each executed with the precision that came from years of training, but none seemed to inflict lasting damage. Meanwhile, the creatures were herding her back toward the dimensional tear, their intentions becoming alarmingly clear. Kira's back pressed against her car as she found herself cornered. The lead creature extended an arm that elongated impossibly, its fingers stretching into barbed appendages that wrapped around her wrist. Pain lanced up her arm as the barbs penetrated her skin, drawing beads of blood that seemed to vibrate with an unnatural glow where they fell. The convergence requires catalysts, the creature intoned. Rangers are ideal. Your energy signature will attract others. Kira struggled against its grip, but the barbed fingers only tightened, digging deeper. I don't know what convergence you're talking about, she spat, but I'm not going anywhere with you. Just as the other creatures closed in, the air behind them rippled again, but differently this time. This new distortion radiated a golden-orange light that felt warm rather than sickly. From within it burst a figure moving so fast that Kira initially registered only a blur of black and orange. The newcomer slammed into the lead creature with devastating force, breaking its grip on Kira's wrist. In the same fluid motion, he, definitely a he, Kira noted, spun into a kick that sent the second creature flying backward into a parked car, crumpling its hood. Now stationary, Kira could see him clearly. A young man approximately her age with spiky blonde hair and unusual facial markings that resembled whiskers. He wore strange clothing, some kind of dark orange and black outfit with a green vest covered in pockets, and a metal headband with a spiral leaf symbol. Most striking were his eyes, a vibrant blue that seemed to glow with inner light, the pupils transformed into horizontal bars that gave him an otherworldly appearance. Without looking at her, the stranger spoke, his voice surprisingly gentle despite the intensity of his posture. Stay behind me. These yokai aren't from your world or mine. Before Kira could respond that she didn't need protecting, the stranger created 4 perfect duplicates of himself in puffs of smoke, not illusions or holograms, solid copies that moved independently, each adopting a different fighting stance. What the actual? Kira began, but her words died as the battle resumed. The stranger and his duplicates moved with coordinated precision that spoke of extensive combat experience. 2 clones engaged the creature with the blade, weaving around its attacks while landing devastating counters. Another clone faced the multi-mouthed monstrosity, keeping it distracted with rapid strikes. The original and remaining clone confronted the lead creature, which had recovered from the initial attack and now seemed focused entirely on the newcomer. You carry greater power, it hissed, its masked face splitting horizontally to reveal rows of needle-like teeth. Your energy is different, ancient. The stranger's expression hardened. Yeah, I get that a lot. Not sure what you are or why you're here, but attacking innocent people ends now. He extended his hand, and Kira watched in amazement as energy swirled in his palm, condensing into a spiraling sphere of blue light. The air around it distorted with power, creating a high-pitched whine that even she could barely hear. Rasengan, he shouted, driving the energy sphere into the creature's chest. The impact created a shockwave that forced Kira to brace against her car. The creature's body twisted unnaturally as the sphere drilled into it, shredding. G would ever passed for its internal structure before exploding outward in a burst of blue light. When the light faded, nothing remained of the creature except a fine mist that evaporated into the air. The remaining yokai reacted immediately to their comrades' destruction, abandoning their fights with the clones and rushing toward the dimensional tier. The stranger didn't pursue, instead turning his attention to Kira. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his eyes fading from their strange configuration back to normal human pupils, though they remained an unnaturally vivid blue. Kira glanced at her wrist, where the puncture wounds from the creature's grip were already beginning to swell and discolor. "Nothing life-threatening," she responded, studying him warily. "Who are you? Or maybe the better question is what are you?" The young man's duplicates disappeared in simultaneous puffs of smoke, and he rubbed the back of his neck in a gesture that seemed incongruously casual after the display of power she'd just witnessed. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki," he answered. "I'm a shinobi from Kanahagakure, the village hidden in the leaves." When this introduction was met with her blank stare, he added, "Which I'm guessing doesn't exist in this dimension." "Dimension?" Kira repeated, the implications clicking into place. "You came through a portal too, just like those things." Naruto nodded, his expression growing serious. "Something's happening to the barriers between worlds. I was investigating a disturbance in my village when I got pulled into somewhere else. A place between dimensions. And I sensed another disturbance opening and followed it here, hoping it might lead back home." He glanced at the dimensional tear, which had shrunk considerably but remained visible as a shimmering distortion in the air. "Those creatures, we call similar beings yokai in my world. They're symptoms of whatever's breaking down the barriers. They shouldn't be able to cross between dimensions so easily." Kira's mind raced, connecting his explanation to the creature's words about a convergence, and using rangers as catalysts. She'd dealt with enough world-threatening situations to recognize the pattern. This wasn't an isolated incident but the beginning of something bigger. "They were looking specifically for Power Rangers," she said, watching his reaction carefully. "They said my energy signature would attract others. Does that mean anything to you?" Naruto's brow furrowed. "Power Rangers? No, that's not something we have where I'm from." "But," his eyes widened suddenly, and he reached into one of his vest pockets, withdrawing an object that pulsed with inner light. It was a gem approximately the size of a golf ball, multifaceted and shifting between emerald green and gold as it caught the fading daylight. Within its depths, Kira could almost discern a pattern, something serpentine and powerful. "I found this when I was in that between place," Naruto explained, holding it up. Chi was clutched in the hand of someone, or something, that was dying. They said I needed to find those who channel the ancient grid, and that this Draconite gem would guide me." The gem pulsed brighter as he held it toward Kira. Responding to her proximity, she instinctively backed away, years of experience having taught her that mysterious glowing objects rarely led to positive outcomes. "I think it's reacting to you," Naruto observed, "to whatever energy those creatures detected." Kira hesitated, then decided that after everything she'd seen, honesty was the most efficient approach. Ed to be a Power Ranger, the Yellow Dino Thunder Ranger. My powers came from a gem too, a yellow dino gem that bonded with my DNA. The power's gone now, but I guess I still carry some kind of residue." Understanding dawned in Naruto's eyes. "That's why they called you a beacon. They're hunting people like you, these rangers, because you have some connection to whatever's happening." The dimensional tear pulsed suddenly, expanding briefly before contracting again. Both of them tensed, preparing for more creatures to emerge, but instead, the tear began emitting a high-frequency tone that made Kira's teeth ache. "That can't be good," she muttered. Naruto slipped the gem back into his pocket and moved closer to the tear, his posture cautious but determined. "It's destabilizing. I think those yokai were keeping it open somehow. And now that they've retreated, it's going to collapse," Kira finished, the implications clear. "And you'll be stranded here." He nodded, surprisingly calm. "For someone facing indefinite exile in a foreign dimension. Looks that way. But there will be others, more tiers opening as the barriers continue to weaken. And more yokai coming through them." Kira found herself unexpectedly impressed by his composure. Most people would be panicking at the prospect of being trapped in another dimension, but this Naruto person seemed focused entirely on the larger threat. It reminded her of how Drive O handled crises, prioritizing the mission over personal concerns. "You need somewhere to stay while we figure this out," she stated, the decision forming even as she spoke. "And I need to contact my old team. If these creatures are targeting Rangers specifically, everyone with a connection to the Morphin Grid could be in danger." Naruto turned to her, genuine surprise crossing his features. "You're offering to help. You don't even know me." Kira allowed herself a small smile. "You just saved me from interdimensional monsters. In my experience, that puts you solidly in the probably not evil category. Besides," she added, gesturing to her wrist where the creature's puncture marks continued to darken, "I'm already involved whether I want to be or not." The dimensional tear contracted further, now barely the size of a dinner plate. Naruto watched it for a moment, then extended his hand toward Kira. "I guess we're partners then, at least until I can find a way home and stop whatever's causing this." Kira hesitated only briefly before shaking his hand, noting the calluses that spoke of years of weapons training and combat. "Partners," she agreed, "but fair warning, my car's dead. So we're walking to my apartment. And you're going to need less conspicuous clothes if you don't want to attract attention." For the first time since his arrival, Naruto's serious expression broke into a genuine smile, a transformation so complete that Kira blinked in surprise. The intensity that had made him seem older vanished, replaced by a youthful warmth that crinkled the corners of his eyes. "I can fix your car," he said confidently. "And I'm pretty good at blending in when I need to." As if to demonstrate, his appearance shimmered and transformed in a puff of smoke. Replacing his unusual clothing with jeans, a simple orange t-shirt, and a black jacket. Only his whisker markings remained unchanged. Kira stared. "Okay, that's going to be useful. But how did you?" "Transformation jutsu," he explained, seeming pleased by her reaction. "Basic ninja technique where I'm from. Now, about your car." He approached the Volkswagen, examining it with curiosity. "Never seen one exactly like this before, but machinery is pretty similar across dimensions, I guess." He placed his hand on the hood and closed his eyes in concentration. A moment later, a soft blue glow emanated from his palm, spreading throughout the vehicle. "Try it now," he suggested, stepping back. Skeptical but willing to humor him, Kira slid into the driver's seat and turned the key. The engine roared to life immediately, running smoother than it had in months. "How did you?" Naruto shrugged, looking slightly embarrassed by her amazement. "I can channel my chakra, my energy, into things. Your car's energy flow was blocked. I just unblocked it." Kira shook her head in disbelief. "Right, you just performed automotive acupuncture with your magic ninja energy. At this point, why not?" She motioned to the passenger seat. "Get in. We need to make some calls." As Naruto settled in beside her, Kira couldn't help but steal glances at her strange new ally. Everything about him defied her understanding of reality. His abilities, his origin, even his casual acceptance of being stranded in another dimension. Yet something about his presence felt reassuring, as though the universe had sent exactly the right person to deal with whatever crisis was unfolding. The dimensional tear collapsed completely as they drove away, leaving no trace of its existence except the lingering wounds on Kira's wrist and the memory of creatures that should not exist. In her rearview mirror, Kira noticed storm clouds gathering on the horizon, unnatural in their perfect circular formation. "A convergence," she murmured, recalling the creature's words. "Whatever that means, I have a feeling we're going to find out soon." 3,000 miles east of Reefside, Kimberly Hart completed her final tumbling pass with the precision that had once earned her pan-global glory. At 36, she moved with the same grace that had defined her gymnastics career, though experience had added a controlled power to her movements that her younger self had lacked. The private gymnasium echoed with the sound of her landing, a solid thump followed by complete silence. No audience applauded, no judges assessed her performance. These late-night sessions were for herself alone, a form of moving meditation that kept both body and mind sharp. Kimberly wiped perspiration from her brow, her breathing controlled despite the difficulty of the routine she'd just executed. Years of ranger battles had instilled stamina that transcended normal human limitations, and subsequent experiences had only honed that edge. She checked her watch. Nearly midnight. Another hour before she needed to review the security protocols for tomorrow's diplomatic meeting. Her current role as security consultant to the United Nations Specialized Task Force on Unexplained Phenomena was a careful balance, utilizing her unique experience while maintaining the secrecy surrounding Ranger operations. Leah select few knew of her past identity as the original Pink Ranger. To most colleagues, she was simply an exceptionally skilled operative with an uncanny ability to anticipate unusual threats. As she reached for her water bottle, a familiar vibration pulsed against her wrist. Not her watch or phone, but something far more significant, her communicator, dormant for so long that its activation say. A shock of adrenaline through her system. The communicator had been modified over the years, integrated into a fitness band that appeared ordinary to casual observation. She pressed the concealed button, and a holographic display materialized above her wrist, displaying information that made her breath catch. Morphin grid fluctuations detected at multiple global locations, she read aloud, scanning the scrolling data. Pattern inconsistent with known Ranger activity or enemy incursions. The display shifted to a world map where 7 points pulsated with light: Reefside, California; Angel Grove, California; London, England; Tokyo, Japan; Sydney, Australia; Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and a location in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that corresponded to no known landmass. More concerning were the readings themselves. The energy signatures resembled the Morphin grid but contained something foreign, something that reminded Kimberly of the few times she'd encountered tears in the fabric of dimensional reality. She pressed another sequence on the communicator, initiating a secure connection. Seconds later, a familiar face appeared in the holographic display, a man in his 40s with short dark hair, glasses, and the perpetually serious expression of someone who had borne tremendous responsibility for too long. Tommy, she greeted him, formality discarded in the face of potential crisis. Are you seeing this, Doctor? Thomas Oliver nodded, his expression grim. Just got the alert. Haley's systems are picking up similar anomalies. One manifested in Reefside about an hour ago. Reefside. Kimberly's concern sharpened. Isn't that where? Here is there, Tommy confirmed. I've been trying to reach her, but no response yet. Connor and Ethan are both out of the country, and Trent's on the other coast. Kimberly processed this information quickly, falling back into the rhythm of crisis management that had defined so much of her life. I can be in Reefside by morning. The UN meeting can wait. Tommy's expression softened slightly, always ready to jump back into action. Some habits die hard, she replied with a small smile. Besides, these readings, they're not like anything we've seen before. If something's threatening the Morphin grid, it threatens everything, Tommy finished. I know, I'm heading to the command center ruins tonight. If any place might have records of similar events, it's there. Kimberly nodded, already mentally preparing for the journey. I'll coordinate with Haley once I land in California. And Tommy, she hesitated, UNC. Ertain how to articulate the strange foreboding that had settled in her chest. Be careful, something about this feels fundamental. Like we're dealing with forces beyond even what we've faced before. That's saying something, Tommy acknowledged. You be careful too, Kim. The communication ended, leaving Kimberly alone in the silent gymnasium. She moved quickly to her locker, retrieving the go bag she always kept prepared. Inside, wrapped in protective cloth, lay her original power coin, powerless now, but still connected to the Morphin grid in ways that defied scientific explanation. She pressed it between her palms, feeling the faint warmth that had never completely faded. Once a Ranger, she whispered the familiar phrase, completing it in her mind, always a Ranger. Whatever was coming, whatever forces were manipulating the dimensional barriers and the Morphin grid, Kimberly knew one thing with absolute certainty: she would face it as she had faced every threat since that fat EFUL day Zordon had chosen 5 teenagers with attitude. Not alone, but as part of something greater than herself. As she left the gymnasium, a subtle tremor ran through the building, so slight that anyone else might have dismissed it as imagination or distant traffic. But Kimberly recognized it for what it was, reality itself shuddering as the walls between dimensions grew thinner. The storm was coming, and this time, it threatened not just one world, but all of them. Naruto sat cross-legged on the floor of Kira's modest apartment, the Draconite gem placed on the coffee table before him. His eyes were closed in meditation. His consciousness extended outward in the specialized awareness that came with Sage Mode. For the past hour, he'd been attempting to understand the gem's nature by sensing its energy patterns. Across the room, Kira paced while speaking quietly into her phone, occasionally glancing at her unusual guest. She'd changed into fresh clothes, black jeans and a low tank top, and bandaged the wounds on her wrist, though they continued to throb with a dull ache that felt distinctly unnatural. "Yes, drive." "Oh, he's still here," she confirmed, keeping her voice low. Though she suspected Naruto could hear every word. "No, he hasn't shown any signs of, yes, I know the protocol for dimensional visitors, but he saved my life. I think that earns him some benefit of the doubt." She listened for a moment, then sighed in frustration. "The next flight isn't until morning. Can't you just, I don't know, teleport or something?" Another pause. "Right. Sorry, I forgot the command center systems are offline. Yes, I'll keep you updated if anything changes." Ending the call, Kira approached Naruto cautiously, not wanting to disturb his meditation. To her surprise, he spoke without opening his eyes. "Your teacher is worried I might be dangerous," he observed, his tone matter of fact rather than accusatory. Kira leaned against the wall, crossing her arms. "Can you blame him? Interdimensional visitors don't exactly have a great track record in our experience." A small smile tugged at Naruto's lips. "Fair enough. In my world, people from other dimensions USUA. LLY try to enslave or destroy everything too." His eyes opened, returning from their sage-enhanced state to normal blue. "But I promise I'm not here to conquer your planet or steal your resources or whatever other visitors have tried." "Good to know," Kira replied dryly. "So what did your meditation tell you about the glowing rock of destiny?" Naruto picked up the gem, which pulsed with inner light at his touch. "It's alive, in a way. Not conscious like you or me, but aware. It contains enormous power, but it's dormant, or maybe waiting is a better word." "Waiting for something specific," he frowned, turning the gem to examine its facets. "The dying guardian who gave it to me called it the Draconite gem, and said it was one of 7. He told me they were scattered across dimensions for protection, and that they're connected to something called the ancient grid. I'm guessing that's related to your ranger powers." Kira nodded, moving closer to examine the gem. "The Morphin grid is the energy source that powers all ranger teams. It exists outside normal space-time, connecting to our dimension through various conduits, power coins, morphers, dino gems, that sort of thing." She hesitated, then continued. "But I've never heard of Draconite gems or any connection to dragons. My team's powers were dinosaur-based, and other teams have had different themes: animals, elements, vehicles, even ninjas." "Ironically enough, ninjas, huh?" Naruto grinned. "Maybe I'll fit in better than I thought." His expression sobered quickly. "The Guardian also mentioned something called the Convergence, same term those yokai used. He said it was beginning, and that dimensions that should remain separate were starting to overlap." Kira sat on the couch, processing this information. Quote, "And these gems are connected to this convergence somehow. I think they might be the key to stopping it," Naruto replied. "Or controlling it, at least. The Guardian seemed to believe I could use T's gem to help stabilize the boundaries between worlds." He placed the gem back on the table, where it continued to pulse with a rhythm that almost resembled a heartbeat. "The problem is, I have no idea how to activate it. My chakra interacts with it, but nothing happens except this glowing." Kira studied the gem thoughtfully. "Maybe it needs more than just your energy. The yokai specifically get me because I had a connection to the Morphin grid. What if the gem needs both, your chakra and ranger energy?" "Worth a try," Naruto agreed, lifting the gem again. "How does this work? Do you just touch it?" Kira hesitated, years of experience making her cautious about interacting with unknown power sources. But curiosity and necessity overrode caution. "I guess we'll find out," she said, extending her hand. As her fingers made contact with the gem, several things happened simultaneously. The gem's pulsing light intensified dramatically, bathing the apartment in emerald and gold radiance. A surge of energy traveled up Kira's arm, not painful but intense, reminiscent of the first time she'd connected with her Dino gem years ago. Most significantly, Naruto's body began to glow with the same energy. Patterns of light forming intricate symbols across his skin. Whoa, Kira exclaimed, but found herself unable to pull away from the gem. The energy flow had created a connection that felt both foreign and strangely familiar. Naruto's eyes widened as the symbols on his skin shifted and coalesced, forming a pattern that resembled a stylized dragon wrapped around his forearms and chest. This is incredible, he breathed, experiencing a sensation unlike anything his shinobi training had prepared him for. Images flooded both their minds simultaneously, a massive dragon with scales that shifted between emerald and gold, 7 crystals arranged in a circle, each containing a different elemental aspect, warriors from across time and space standing together against a darkness that devoured entire realities. And at the center of it all, a nexus point where all dimensions intersected. The vision ended as suddenly as it had begun, leaving them gasping for breath. The gems. Light dimmed to its previous gentle pulsing, but something fundamental had changed. Naruto could feel the gem's energy now merged with his own chakra network, accessible but dormant, waiting for a specific trigger. Kira withdrew her hand, staring at her palm where a faint symbol had appeared, a dragon's claw that faded even as she examined it. What just happened? Naruto stood, energy still coursing through his system in unfamiliar patterns. I think the gem recognized both of us. It showed us what we're facing. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing the dragon pattern now embedded in his skin like a luminous tattoo that faded slowly. The convergence isn't just tears between a few dimensions, he continued, his voice grave. It's all dimensions beginning to collapse into each other. And those yokai, they're servants of something much worse that's trying to accelerate the process. Kira rose unsteadily, the vision's implications settling over her like a physical weight. And this ancient grid, the Guardian mentioned, it's connected to the Morphin grid but older, more fundamental. The dragon showed us 7 gems, each representing a different aspect or element. Fire, water, earth, air, lightning, shadow, and light, Naruto recited, the knowledge somehow implanted in his mind. This is the dragon gem, representing balance between all elements. The Guardian chose me because you already contain multiple energies, Kira finished, recalling the vision's revelation. The 9-tailed beasts you mentioned during the vision, they each represent different chakra natures. You're already a vessel for balanced power. Naruto nodded slowly, accepting this interpretation. And you were shown because rangers are connected to this ancient grid through your Morphin grid. We need to find others, both from my world and yours. People who can help locate and activate the remaining gems. A sudden thought struck him. The vision showed specific people, faces I didn't recognize, but you might. There was a woman with dark hair practicing some kind of martial art, wearing pink. Kimberly, Kira breathed. Kimberly Hart, the original Pink Ranger. She was there. And others, Naruto confirmed. Including someone from my world, Hinata Hyuga. And, he frowned, someone I thought was dead, Chiyuya of the Sound 4. Before Kira could respond, her phone chimed with an incoming message. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting to one of grim determination. It's from Haley, Drive O's technical advisor. More dimensional tiers are opening across the globe. And something massive is forming in the Pacific Ocean. She's detecting energy signatures similar to the Morphin grid but distorted somehow. Naruto's gaze fell to the Draconite gem, which pulsed more rapidly now. As if responding to distant events. It's starting, he said quietly. The convergence is accelerating. Outside, the night sky flashed with silent lightning, illuminating sea clouds that swirled in unnatural patterns. Somewhere in the distance, a low rumble of thunder echoed, nature itself responding to the weakening boundaries between worlds. Kira moved to the window, watching the storm gather strength. Dr. O and Kimberly are on their way, but they won't arrive until morning. Until then, it's just us. Naruto joined her at the window, his reflection overlaid against the darkening sky. In the glass, for just a moment, his image seemed to shift, overlaid with the spectral form of a dragon, its wings extended protectively. Just us, he agreed, and whatever power this gem is willing to share. As if in response, the Draconite gem pulsed once more, brighter than before, casting their shadows against the far wall, shadows that seemed to take the shape of warriors from another time. Standing ready for battle. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Convergent Powers. Morning light filtered through Kira's apartment windows, casting long shadows across the living room where Naruto sat cross-legged on the floor. He hadn't slept. Instead, he'd spent the night in meditation, attempting to commune with the Draconite gem that now pulsed with a steady emerald glow on the coffee table before him. The connection forged yesterday had stabilized, linking the gem's energy to his chakra network in ways that felt simultaneously foreign and familiar. In the kitchen, Kira prepared coffee, stealing occasional glances at her unusual houseguest. She'd managed a few hours of restless sleep, her dreams invaded by visions of dragons and collapsing dimensions. The wounds on her wrist had finally stopped throbbing, though they'd left strange scale-like markings around each puncture. "Any luck?" she asked, approaching with 2 steaming mugs. Naruto opened his eyes, the horizontal bar pupils of sage mode fading to normal blue as he accepted the offered coffee. "Some," he replied, taking an experimental sip and blinking at the bitter taste. "I can sense the gem's energy better now, but activating it is still beyond me. It's like having a key without knowing which lock it fits." Kira settled onto the couch, tucking one leg beneath her. "Dr. O and Kimberly's flight lands in an hour. If anyone can help us understand this thing, it's them. Your teacher was the Green Ranger in the vision, right?" Naruto asked, recalling the images the gem had shown them. "Green, white, red, and black," Kira corrected with a small smile. "Dr. O has a habit of collecting Ranger colors. He's basically a legend in the Ranger community, been active longer than anyone else." Naruto nodded thoughtfully. "In my world, we have similar figures, shinobi whose names are known across all nations. My father was one, so was my teacher, Kakashi." A comfortable silence fell between them as they sipped their coffee. Despite having known each other less than 24 hours, a strange camaraderie had developed, the kind that forms quickly between people who have faced danger together. Here, A's phone buzzed with an incoming message. "Haley says there's been another tier opening in Angel Grove Park," she reported, scanning the text. "No yokai sightings yet, but she's picking up unusual energy readings." "Angel Grove. That's where we're meeting your friends, right?" Naruto set down his mug and stood, stretching muscles stiff from hours of meditation. "It's where everything started," Kira explained. "The first Ranger team was based there. The ruins of their command center still exist in the desert outside the city." Naruto collected the Draconite gem, which warmed at his touch. ND slipped it into the pocket of the borrowed jeans he wore. Kira had insisted on a shopping trip the previous evening, ensuring he had clothing that wouldn't attract attention. He now wore dark jeans, an orange t-shirt, and a black jacket, casual by this world's standards but strange compared to his usual attire. "We should head to the airport," Kira suggested, gathering her keys in a yellow backpack. "Dr. O will want to examine that gem as soon as possible." As they stepped outside, both immediately noticed the change in atmosphere. The sky above Reefside had taken on a strange quality, the blue several shades too dark, with streaks of color that resembled aurora borealis despite the morning hour. Birds moved in erratic patterns, as though confused by invisible obstacles in the air. And the ambient sounds of the city seemed slightly distorted, echoing at odd intervals. "The barriers are getting weaker," Naruto observed, his senses heightened from years of training. "This world is starting to bleed into others." Kira nodded grimly as they approached her yellow Volkswagen. "I've been through enough apocalyptic scenarios to recognize the signs. We need to figure this out fast." The drive to the airport passed in tense silence, both watching for further anomalies. Twice they spotted shimmering areas in the air, potential tiers that formed and dissipated before fully manifesting. Traffic grew increasingly erratic as other drivers reacted to the strange atmospheric conditions, some pulling over to stare at the unnatural sky. At the airport, they found an impromptu news crew interviewing travelers about the phenomena. Scientists on morning shows were already offering explanations ranging from atmospheric disturbances to mass hallucinations. None came close to the truth. "There they are," Kira said suddenly, pointing toward the arrival gate where two figures had emerged from the crowd. The man was tall and athletic, with short dark hair shot through with traces of gray at the temples. His bearing suggested military training, though his casual clothing, khaki pants and a black button-up shirt, gave little indication of his history as one of Earth's greatest defenders. Beside him walked a woman whose grace and poise immediately captured attention. Her brown hair fell in layers around a face that remained strikingly beautiful despite the serious expression she wore. She carried herself with the confidence of someone who had faced the worst the universe could offer and emerged victorious. "Doctor." "Oh," Kira called, waving to attract their attention. The pair changed course, moving efficiently through the crowd toward them. As they approached, Naruto noticed how both veterans subtly assessed him, calculating threat levels, identifying potential weapons, noting his posture and alertness. These were people who had never fully left the battlefield, regardless of how much time had passed. "Kira," the man greeted her warmly, embracing his former student before turning his attention to Naruto. "And you must be our interdimensional visitor." Naruto Uzumaki, he introduced himself with a slight bow, a gesture of respect from his culture. "Thank you for coming. Kira speaks highly of your expertise." Tommy Oliver, the older man, returned the introduction. "And this is Kimberly Hart." The woman stepped forward, her keen brown eyes studying Naruto with undisguised curiosity. "Not what I expected," she admitted with a hint of a smile. "Most of our interdimensional visitors tend toward dramatic fashion choices and megalomania." "The day's still young," Naruto replied with a grin that broke the tension. "I left my plans for world domination in my other dimension." Kimberly's smile widened into something genuine, a flash of the warmth beneath her professional exterior. "I like him already," she told Kira. Tommy, however, remained cautious. "Let's continue this somewhere more private." Haley's set up a temporary base at her cafe. "We can." He stopped mid-sentence as a distorted ripple passed through the air around them, causing the sounds of the busy airport to momentarily muffle then amplify. Nearby travelers looked around in confusion, but only the four of them seemed to fully perceive the dimensional fluctuation. "That's the third one in the past hour," Kira explained quietly. "They're getting stronger and more frequent." Tommy nodded grimly. "Let's move, now." Haley's cyberspace had been closed to the public, a private event sign hanging on the door. Inside, the cafe had been transformed into an impromptu command center. Computer monitors displayed global maps with pulsing indicators of dimensional activity, energy readings, and satellite imagery. Haley Zichter herself, a brilliant redhead whose technical expertise had supported the Dino Thunder Rangers, moved between workstations with practiced efficiency. "The tear in Angel Grove Park has stabilized," she reported as the group entered. "But it's not the only one. We've got similar phenomena appearing in Tokyo, London, and Rio de Janeiro, all corresponding to locations of previous Ranger activity." Tommy examined the monitors, his expression darkening. "They're targeting the Morphin grid connection points, places where the barrier between our dimension and the grid is naturally thinner." Naruto approached one of the screens, studying the pattern of anomalies. "In my world, we have places like this too, locations where the barrier between dimensions has been weakened by previous conflicts or powerful chakra usage." "Speaking of your world," Tommy turned to him. "I think it's time you showed us this gem Kira mentioned." Naruto nodded, retrieving the Draconite gem from his pocket. As he held it out, the emerald crystal pulsed with renewed intensity, responding to the presence of multiple Ranger energy signatures in the room. Kimberly moved closer, her expression shifting from curiosity to recognition. "I've seen something like this before," she said softly. "Not exactly the same, but similar. During a mission to Fidos, the ancient ruins there contained carvings of 7 gems arranged in a circle around a dragon." "Fidos?" Kira questioned. "Before your time," Tommy explained. "An alien world connected to the original source of our powers. The great power that Ninjeti Rangers draw from has its origins there." He carefully took the gem from Naruto, examining it without directly touching its surface. "This energy signature, it's not Morphin grid energy, at least not entirely. It's more primal somehow." From across the room, a new voice joined the conversation. "That's because it predates the Morphin grid as we understand it." All eyes turned to the doorway where a woman stood, slightly breathless as though she'd been running. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with striking features that suggested mixed heritage, Chinese and Polynesian, perhaps. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and she wore glasses that couldn't diminish the intensity of her gaze. Despite her disheveled appearance, she carried herself with academic confidence. "Dr. Chen," Tommy acknowledged, surprise evident in his tone. "I didn't expect you until tomorrow. The dimensional fluctuations accelerated my timeline," she replied, approaching the group. "When ancient cosmic energies start rearranging themselves, my research tends to become suddenly relevant." She extended her hand to Naruto. "Dr. Kayla Chen, quantum physicist and dimensional theorist. And you must be the interdimensional traveler my equipment detected yesterday." Naruto shook her hand, noting the calluses of someone who spent equal time with laboratory equipment and fieldwork. "Naruto Uzumaki, you know about the dimensions. I've spent my career studying them," she confirmed, her attention shifting to the gem in Tommy's hand. "May I?" Tommy carefully transferred the gem to her. The moment it touched her palm, the crystal flared with light, causing her to nearly drop it in surprise. "Fascinating," she murmured, regaining her composure. "It's responding to my bioelectric field, or perhaps to something deeper." She looked up at the others. "This gem contains trace quantum signatures identical to those of recorded at dimensional fault lines." "In English, Doc," Kira requested. Dr. Chen placed the gem on a nearby table, where it continued to pulse rhythmically. "Everything in existence exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, but those dimensions are normally separated by quantum barriers. Think of them as walls that keep different realities from interacting. Occasionally, these barriers thin naturally, allowing limited interaction between dimensions." She gestured to the gem. "This crystal contains energy that exists outside normal dimensional constraints. It belongs to all realities simultaneously, which should be impossible according to conventional physics." Naruto nodded slowly. "The Guardian, who gave it to me, called it a Draconite gem, and said it was one of 7 scattered across dimensions." 7. Drive, Chen repeated thoughtfully. "That corresponds with theoretical models of dimensional stability. My research suggests our universe exists within a 7-fold quantum framework." Tommy crossed his arms, bringing the conversation back to practical concerns. "How does this relate to the tears appearing around the world? And these yokai creatures Kira encountered?" Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. "I believe we're witnessing the early stages of what my research terms a convergence event, a cosmic alignment where dimensional barriers naturally thin. It happens approximately every 10,000 years, allowing limited interaction between realities." "That doesn't sound so bad," Kimberly observed. "Under normal circumstances, it wouldn't be drive," Chen agreed. "But something, or someone, is amplifying the effect, forcing tears where they shouldn't exist and keeping them open artificially. If this continues, the barriers collapse completely," Naruto finished, recalling his vision. "And all dimensions begin bleeding into each other." "Precisely, drive," Chen confirmed grimly. "Complete dimensional collapse, every reality crashing into every other reality simultaneously. End of everything," Tommy summarized. "Great. Tuesday as usual." Kira couldn't help but smile at her mentor's dry humor in the face of cosmic annihilation. "Some things never changed. These gems," Kimberly steered the conversation back. "You said there are 7. We have 1. Where are the others?" "Scattered across dimensions," Naruto repeated. "The Guardian didn't specify which ones. They would logically be positioned at dimensional nexus points." Drive, Chen theorized. "Location S where the barriers are naturally thinner. If we could." A sudden alarm from Haley's computers interrupted her. "We've got activity," Haley announced, fingers flying across keyboards. "The tear in Angel Grove Park is expanding rapidly. Energy readings are off the charts." Tommy moved immediately to action. "Haley, keep monitoring from here. The rest of us need to check this out. If yokai are coming through, we need to contain them before civilians get hurt." "I've got something that might help," Kimberly said, retrieving a small case from her luggage. She opened it to reveal 5 wristbands of different colors: red, blue, yellow, pink, and black. Prototype communicators with built-in force field generators. Limited power, but better than nothing. She distributed them quickly. Yellow to Kira, pink for herself. Black for Tommy, blue for Dr. Chen, and red for Naruto. These won't give us ranger powers, she explained, but they'll provide some protection and keep us in contact. Naruto strapped the device to his wrist. He felt the Draconite gem pulse in response. The two technologies, one from this dimension, one from beyond, seemed to recognize each other on some fundamental level. Let's move, Tommy directed, his voice shifting subtly into the command tone of a veteran ranger leader. Whatever's coming through that tear, we need to be ready. Angel Grove Park remained one of the city's most beloved public spaces, despite, or perhaps because of, its history as a frequent battleground during the original Ranger era. The central pavilion had been rebuilt numerous times, and plaques commemorated various, unexplained events that locals understood as code for monster attacks. Today, the park had been hastily evacuated, police barricades establishing a perimeter around the dimensional tear that hovered 10 feet above the central fountain. The distortion had grown to nearly 30 feet in diameter, its edges shifting between electric blue and sickly green as reality itself warped around it. Tommy's SUV pulled up at the perimeter, where officers immediately recognized him, benefits of his cover identity as a government consultant on unusual phenomena. Dr. Oliver, the officer greeted him. Area's clear of civilians. Whatever that thing is, it's been growing for the past hour. Some kind of energy field, the science team says. Thanks, officer. My team will take it from here, Tommy replied with the practiced authority that came from years of leadership. As they approached the tear, Naruto felt the Draconite gem growing warmer in his pocket. Something was coming. Something connected to the gem's energy signature. It's beautiful, in a terrifying way. Drive. Chen observed, equipment already in hand as she took readings. The quantum Harmon ICS are unlike anything I've recorded before. It's as though multiple dimensional frequencies are overlapping simultaneously. Kira remained close to Naruto, unconsciously positioning herself between him and the tier. Her previous ranger instincts had reawakened fully, body tensed for action despite the absence of her powers. Last time these things appeared, yokai came through, she reminded the group. Ugly, strong, and specifically hunting rangers. Kimberly nodded, her stance subtly shifting to a fighting position that would appear casual to untrained observers. Then they're in for a surprise. Powers or not, we're not exactly defenseless. As if responding to her challenge, the tear pulsed violently, its circumference expanding in a sudden burst. The air around it crackled with energy, and the fountain beneath it began to vibrate, water splashing in unnatural patterns. Something's coming through, Tommy warned, moving forward protectively. The tear's center darkened, shadows coalescing into solid forms that emerged with deliberate slowness. Unlike the chaotic emergence Kira had witnessed in Reefside, this arrival felt planned, staged for maximum intimidation. First came E4 yokai similar to those Naruto had fought, misshapen humanoids with too many joints and mask-like faces. They positioned themselves at cardinal points around the fountain, weapons drawn. These reed ornate staffs topped with crystals that pulsed in rhythm with the dimensional tier. Following them came a larger figure that moved with fluid grace despite its monstrous appearance. 9 feet tall, its body resembled polished obsidian segmented with glowing red lines that pulsed like circuitry. Its face was a stylized kabuki mask, white with red markings and black hollow eyes that somehow conveyed intelligence and malice. Servants of the dying light, the creature spoke, its voice resonant and cultured. How predictable you are. Drawn to the tears between worlds like moths to flame, Tommy stepped forward, placing himself between the creature and his team. Who are you, and what do you want with our world? The yokai commander regarded him with what might have been amusement. I am Kajuran, herald of the Convergence. Voice of Emperor Draven, he gestured expansively. As for what I want, merely to fulfill cosmic inevitability. All dimensions were once one. They shall be again. Dr. Chen's eyes widened at this statement. That's theoretically accurate, she whispered. Most dimensional models suggest a single primal reality that fractured into multiple dimensions. Your science comprehends shadows of truth, Kajuran observed, his attention shifting to her. But lacks vision. The convergence is not destruction but transcendence, realities merging into perfect harmony. Naruto felt the Draconite gem burning against his skin now, reacting violently to Kajuran's presence. He stepped forward to stand beside Tommy. Perfect harmony. Is that why your minions are hunting G-Rangers and forcing tears between stable dimensions? Kajuran's mask tilted, studying Naruto with new interest. The anomaly. The one who carries the dragon gem. His voice lowered dangerously. You were not foreseen. I get that a lot, Naruto replied, subtly shifting into a fighting stance. Look, I don't know much about this convergence, but forcing dimensions together unnaturally is Ulrea. Causing damage to both your world and ours. Necessary transformation requires pain, Kajuran dismissed. Your limited perspective cannot comprehend the glory of Emperor Draven's vision. He raised a clawed hand, and the 4 yokai surrounding him leveled their staffs toward the group. The gems must be gathered. The catalysts activated. Surrender the dragon gem, anomaly, and perhaps you may serve rather than perish. Tommy exchanged glances with his team, a lifetime of ranger battles having taught them to recognize when diplomacy had failed. I don't think we'll be doing either, he answered for all of them. Last chance to return to whatever dimension you came from peacefully. Kajuran's mask split horizontally, revealing rows of crystalline teeth in what might have been a smile. Peace is coming, Ranger. Universal peace when all barriers fall and all realities become one. He made a sharp gesture. Take the gem. Kill the rest. The yokai attacked with coordinated precision, moving faster than their awkward forms suggested possible. Tommy and Kimberly immediately fell into the practiced rhythm of veteran fighters, decades of combat experience evident in every movement. Ira demonstrated her own considerable skill, her smaller stature compensated by speed and agility. Naruto, however, operated on another level entirely. His shadow clones materialized around the battlefield, each engaging a yokai with taijutsu techniques that no human in this dimension had ever witnessed. The original Naruto faced Kajuran directly, Sage Mode activated, horizontal bar pupils fixed on the yokai commander. Fascinating, Kajuran observed, easily deflecting Naruto's initial attacks. Your energy signature is complex, multiple entities housed within a single vessel. No wonder the dragon gem chose you. Naruto launched a series of strikes that would have incapacitated any normal opponent, but Kajuran moved with liquid grace, his obsidian body seeming to flow around the attacks. The gem didn't choose me, Naruto countered. The Guardian did. Kajuran's movements paused momentarily. Guardian. Impossible. The dimensional guardians were eliminated centuries ago. Seizing the opening, Naruto landed a solid hit, his sage-enhanced strength cracking Kajuran's obsidian chest. The yokai commander hissed in pain but retaliated with a sweeping strike that sent Naruto flying backward. Across the battlefield, the others were holding their own but struggling against the yokai's supernatural strength. Tommy and Kimberly fought back to back, their movements synchronized from years of shared battles. Kira had managed to disarm one yokai but found herself cornered by another. Dr. Chen, despite her lack of combat training, was utilizing her force field generator effectively, eating barriers that momentarily confused her attacker. They're trying to keep the tear open. Dr. Chen shouted, noticing how the yokai's staffs emitted energy pulses toward the dimensional rift. The crystals are stabilizing the breach. Quote. Tommy nodded in understanding. We need to take out those staffs. Kimberly, high-low combination on the one by the fountain. With practiced precision, Kimbe RLY launched herself into a handspring that carried her over Tommy's shoulders. As she flipped through the air, Tommy swept low, both attacks connecting simultaneously with their target. The yokai stumbled, its staff momentarily lowered. Now, Kira, Tommy called. The former Yellow Ranger delivered a powerful kick that knocked the staff from the creature's grasp. The crystal atop it shattered on impact with the ground, releasing a burst of energy that momentarily destabilized the dimensional tier. Kajuran roared in anger. Enough games. He raised his hand, and the remaining yokai began to glow with sickly green energy. Their forms twisted, growing larger and more monstrous. The Emperor's blessing upon you, servants. Become his instruments of convergence. The transformed yokai launched renewed attacks. Their strength and speed dramatically increased. One caught Kimberly with a sweeping blow that sent her crashing into a park bench. Another overwhelmed Tommy's defense, pinning him against a tree with crushing force. Naruto's shadow clones popped out of existence as they were systematically destroyed by the enhanced creatures. He found himself back to back with Kira, both breathing heavily as they faced the approaching monsters. "Got any sage tricks left?" Kira asked, wiping blood from a cut on her cheek. "A few," Naruto confirmed, though he knew conventional jutsu might not be enough against these dimensional entities. "But I'm open to suggestions." Across the battlefield, "Drive," Chen called out, "the tear is reaching critical instability. If it collapses violently, dimensional backlash could level the entire park." Kajuran approached Naruto, crystalline teeth gleaming. "The gem, anomaly. Now, or watch your new friends perish as their dimension begins to fracture." Naruto felt the Draconite gem burning against his chest where he'd transferred it from his pocket. Its pulsing had synchronized with his heartbeat, the connection between them strengthening in response to the immediate threat. Time seemed to slow as Naruto assessed their situation. Tommy and Kimberly were down but not defeated, both struggling against their captors with the tenacity of veteran rangers. "Doctor." Chen continued monitoring the tear while keeping her force field active. Kira stood beside him, wounded but defiant, unwilling to surrender despite the overwhelming odds. In that moment, Naruto made his decision. Not from desperation, but from the certainty that had guided him through countless battles in his own world, the absolute conviction that protecting others was always worth any personal risk. "You want the gem," he addressed Kajuran, reaching into his shirt to withdraw the pulsing crystal. "Here it is." "Naruto." "No," Kira protested, but he silenced her with a reassuring glance. The Draconite gem now glowed with blinding intensity, responding to Naruto's resolve. As Kajuran reached for it, Naruto made his move, not to attack or defend, but to embrace the gem's power completely. He pressed the crystal against his chest, directly over his heart, and channeled his chakra into it with focused intention. "I accept the Guardian's charge," he declared, words coming to him instinctively. "I stand between dimensions as their protector, not their destroyer. Dragon of Balance, lend me your power." The gem disappeared into his chest in a flash of emerald light, absorbed into his very being. Energy coursed through Naruto's chakra network, igniting pathways he hadn't known existed. The sensation was both familiar and entirely new, similar to entering tailed beast mode but more refined, more focused. Emerald and gold light enveloped him, forming a cocoon of energy that expanded outward in a shockwave, forcing Kajuran back. Within the cocoon, Naruto felt his body transforming, power reshaping him into something that existed between human and dragon, between shinobi and ranger. When the light faded, Naruto stood transformed. His body was covered in Form Phi TTING armor that resembled scales, primarily emerald green with gold accents and black undersuit. A stylized dragon motif adorned his chest, its eyes glowing with inner light. His helmet retained NTS of his sage appearance, horizontal bars across the visor that suggested his unique pupils, with small horns sweeping backward from the temples. A short cape of golden energy flowed from his shoulders, moving as though alive. Kajuran hissed in recognition and what might have been fear. The Sage Dragon Ranger. Impossible. The prophecy was mere legend. Naruto examined his transformed state with momentary wonder before focusing on the immediate threat. "Legends have a way of becoming real when you need them most," he replied, his voice carrying a resonant quality through the helmet. The power flowing through him felt incredible, his natural chakra amplified and refined through the gem's ancient energy. He could sense connections he'd never perceived before, links between dimensions, pathways through the quantum barriers. And most importantly, the energy signatures of his companions. With newfound speed that left afterimages of golden light, Naruto moved across the battlefield. He F'd Tommy with a precisely aimed strike that shattered the yokai's grip, then repeated the maneuver to rescue Kimberly. Within seconds, he'd cleared a path to Dr. Chen and returned to Kira's side. "That's new," Kira observed, staring at his transformed appearance with undisguised amazement. "Feels right somehow," Naruto replied, the dragon emblem on his chest pulsing with energy. He turned to face Kajuran, who had retreated toward the dimensional tier. "It's over, Herald. Your yokai are outmatched, and I won't let you force these dimensions together unnaturally." Kajuran's mask betrayed no emotion. But his posture had changed from confident to cautious. This changes nothing, Dragon Ranger. The convergence has begun. Emperor Draven's will shall be done. He gestured to his remaining yokai. Retreat. The catalyst has awakened. The master must be informed. Before Naruto could stop them, Kajuran and his minions leapt back through the dimensional tear, which immediately began to contract. The crystal staffs they'd abandoned crumbled to dust, their power extinguished. The tear's collapsing on itself. Drive. Chen announced, monitoring her equipment. Energy levels stabilizing. Dimensional frequencies returning to baseline separation. Tommy approached Naruto cautiously, studying his armored form with the experienced eye of someone who had worn similar suits. I've seen a lot of ranger powers over the years, he said, but nothing quite like this. Kimberly joined them, favoring her right side where the yokai's blow had landed. The dragon motif is new. And that energy, why? It feels different from the morphin grid somehow. More primal. Naruto focused inward, sensing the connection between his chakra and the Draconite gem now merged with his life force. With a thought, he deactivated the transformation. Emerald light washing over him as the armor disappeared, leaving him in his civilian clothes once more. The dragon emblem remained visible beneath his shirt, glowing faintly against his skin. It's not exactly ranger power as you know it, he explained, feeling the gem's energy settling into a steady rhythm within him. It's something between your morphin grid and my world's chakra. The gem acts as a bridge between dimensional energies. Dr. Chen was already recording data, her scientific curiosity overriding her recent brush with danger. Fascinating. The gem must have recognized compatible energy patterns in your chakra system and adapted itself accordingly. This could revolutionize our understanding of cross-dimensional energy transfer. Kira rolled her eyes at the scientist's enthusiasm. Let's focus on the part where interdimensional monsters are trying to collapse all realities together, shall we? Tommy nodded in agreement. Kira's right. This, Emperor Draven, and his convergence plan are the immediate threat. Kajuran mentioned prophecies and catalysts. We need to understand what we're dealing with. And find the other gems, Naruto added, recalling his vision. There are 6 more, each representing a different elemental aspect. Together, they're supposed to either prevent the convergence or control it somehow. Kimberly eyed the park where evidence of their battle remained, shattered benches, cracked pavement, the damaged fountain. We should regroup at the command center ruins. If there are records of these Draconite gems anywhere on Earth, they'll be there. As they prepared to leave, Naruto noticed Kira studying him with an unreadable expression. What? He asked. Green suits you, she replied with a small smile. Though I'm still partial to yellow myself. The ruins of the original command center stood atop a mesa in the desert outside Angel Grove, accessible only by a winding path that discouraged casual visitors. What had once been a gleaming center of operations now existed as a collection of partially restored rooms built into the natural rock formation. The main chamber had been rebuilt with modern equipment. Though it retained elements of its original alien design, crystalline structures merged with advanced Earth technology. Home away from home, Tommy commented as he led the group inside. We've been gradually restoring it over the years. The original systems were destroyed, but Haley's managed to salvage and reverse engineer some of the technology. Naruto walked the perimeter of the circular room, sensing ancient energies embedded in the very walls. This place was important, he observed. A nexus point between dimensions. Zordon chose this location because the barrier between dimensions was naturally thin here, Kimberly explained. It made it easier to establish a connection to the morphin grid. Dr. Chen immediately began interfacing her equipment with the command center's systems. While Kira helped Tommy access archival records, Naruto found himself drawn to a particular section of wall where crystalline formations grew in patterns that reminded him of natural chakra flows. Naruto, Kimberly called, joining him by the wall. How are you feeling after the transformation? First morphs can be intense. He appreciated her concern, recognizing T came from experience rather than doubt in his abilities. Different from what I'm used to, he admitted. In my world, I can transform using natural energy or the tailed beast's chakra, but this was cleaner somehow. More focused. Kimberly nodded in understanding. The morphin grid, or whatever variation you're connecting to, channels energy very precisely. It's designed to amplify a person's natural abilities while providing protection and enhanced strength. The armor feels alive, Naruto continued, touching the spot on his chest where the dragon emblem remained, now dormant but still visible beneath his shirt. Like it's part of me now, waiting. That's how the best ranger connections work, she agreed. The power becomes an extension of who you are, not just a tool you use. Across the room, Tommy called their attention to a display he'd activated. I think I found something. Ancient records from Ninjor's temple mention 7 Draconite crystals that predated the morphin grid itself. Everyone gathered around the display, which showed symbols reminiscent of those Naruto and Kira had seen in their shared vision. 7 gems arranged in a circle around a central dragon figure. According to this, Tommy continued, scrolling through the text, the crystals were created when the one became many, possibly referring to the original separation of dimensions drive. Chen mentioned, they were scattered across the 7 prime realities for safekeeping. Dr. Chen leaned closer to the display. 7 prime realities, that aligns with my research on dimensional stability. There are theoretically 7 foundation dimensions, from which all other dimensional variations spawn. So we need to find 6 more gems across 6 different dimensions. Kira summarized. Great, no pressure. It gets more complicated, Tommy said, continuing to read. The text mentions 7 worthy vessels who must each bond with a crystal. Together, they can direct the convergence toward harmony rather than oblivion. Naruto recalled the vision the dragon gem had shown him and Kira. We saw some of these vessels, people from both my world and yours. The gem was showing us who needs to bond with the other crystals. Can you remember who they were? Kimberly asked. You were there, Kira told her. And someone named Hinata from Naruto's world. There were others too, but the images moved quickly. Naruto nodded. One was to Yuya, someone I thought was dead. And there were others I didn't recognize. Tommy turned to another console. Haley, are you receiving this? The redhead's face appeared on a monitor. Every word. And I've got news. The energy signature we detected in the Pacific Ocean. It's growing. Satellite imagery shows what appears to be an island forming where no island should exist. An island. Dr. Chen moved to examine the satellite feed. That's impossible. The Pacific Plate doesn't have any active underwater volcanism in that region. It's not volcanic, Haley clarified, sending enhanced images to their display. It looks like pieces of different landscapes merging together. Jungle sections beside Arctic formations, desert dunes leading into crystalline structures. A dimensional convergence point, drive. Chen breathed. Physical manifestations of multiple realities occupying the same space. Tommy's expression hardened. If that's happening on a macro scale, the dimensional barriers are weakening faster than we thought. We need to find those gems quickly. A sudden alarm from Dr. Chen's equipment interrupted their discussion. Energy surge detected, she announced, checking readings. Similar signature to the Angel Grove tear, but much stronger. Location. She looked up in surprise. Here, directly beneath the command center. The ground trembled beneath their feet, the ancient structure groaning as dimensional energies surged through its foundation. Crystalline formations along the walls began to glow with unnatural light. Responding to the disturbance, the command center sits on a dimensional thin point, Tommy realized. If a major tear opens here, it could destabilize the entire region. Drive. Chen finished. The energy release would be catastrophic. Naruto felt the Draconite gem's energy stirring within him, responding to the dimensional fluctuation. I might be able to stabilize it, he suggested. The dragon gem seems to react to these tears. Before anyone could respond, a section of floor in the center of the chamber cracked open, emerald light pouring through the fissure. The light coalesced into a pillar that stretched from floor to ceiling, within which shadowy figures became visible, not yokai this time, but human forms. Something's coming through, Kimberly warned, dropping into a defensive stance. Naruto summoned the dragon gem's power, ready to transform if necessary. Beside him, Kira, Tommy, and Kimberly formed a protective line, their years of ranger training evident in their coordinated positioning. The light pillar pulsed once, twice, then shattered like glass, leaving 3 figures standing in its place. 2 women and 1 man, all dressed in clothing that Naruto to instantly recognized as being from his world. Hinata, he gasped, identifying the woman with long dark hair and distinctive pale eyes. She looked up at his voice, disbelief and joy washing over her delicate features. Naruto-kun, you're alive. The second woman, red-haired with a hard expression and clothing that marked her as a sound ninja, scowled at their surroundings. What the hell is this place? And why am I stuck with Hyuga Princess here? Chiyuya, Naruto identified her, confirming another figure from his vision. You survived. The third figure, a tall man with silver hair and a mask covering the lower half of his face, surveyed the room with a single visible eye that reflected decades of combat experience. Kakashi-sensei, Naruto exclaimed, momentarily forgetting the crisis in his joy at seeing familiar faces. Naruto, his former teacher acknowledged with characteristic calm, despite having just traversed dimensions. I see you've made some interesting new friends. Are to explain why we were pulled through what appeared to be a tear in reality. Before Naruto could answer, Chen's equipment began emitting urgent alerts. The dimensional tear is still active, she warned. And it's growing more unstable by the second. The pillar of light that had delivered Naruto's companions began to twist unnaturally, its color shifting from emerald to sickly purple. Dark shapes moved within it, not human this time, but the unmistakable silhouettes of yokai warriors. They followed us through, Kakashi observed, immediately assessing the tactical situation. And they don't appear friendly. Tommy stepped forward, exchanging a brief look with Kimberly that communicated decades of shared experience. Welcome to Earth, he told the newcomers with grim humor. Hope you're ready for a fight. As if responding to his words, the pillar exploded outward in a shower of dimensional energy, revealing a contingent of yokai led by a figure unlike any they'd seen before. A warrior whose armor appeared to be crafted from fragments of different realities, each piece shifting and changing as though unable to decide which dimension it belonged to. Dimensional convergence detected, the leader announced in a voice that echoed as though speaking from multiple locations simultaneously. Dragon Ranger identified, additional targets acquired, initiating catalyst activation protocol. Naruto stepped forward, the dragon emblem on his chest glowing with increasing intensity. He looked back at his friends from both worlds, Kira and Kimberly with their ranger experience, Tommy with his leadership, drive, Chen with her scientific knowledge, and now Hinata, Chiyuya, and Kakashi with their shinobi skills. A team from across dimensions, brought together by forces they bar. Ely understood to face a threat to all reality. Ready? He asked simply. 7 heads nodded in determined agreement as the yokai advanced, dimensional energy crackling around them. In that moment, despite the danger, or perhaps because of it, Naruto felt a surge of that familiar certainty that had guided him through his most desperate battles. They would find a way. Together. With a thought, he summoned the dragon gem's power. Emerald and gold light washing over him as he transformed once more into the Sage Dragon Ranger. The dragon emblem on his chest roared silently as he took his place at the front of their improvised team. Ready to defend 2 worlds, and perhaps all reality, from the approaching storm. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, The Gathering Storm. The command center erupted into chaos as yokai warriors poured through the dimensional tear, their misshapen forms filling the ancient chamber with otherworldly menace. Leading them was the armored figure whose very presence seemed to distort reality around him, fragments of his protection constantly shifting between states of matter, locations, and even time itself. Naruto, transformed into the Sage Dragon Ranger, moved first, Alden gold armor gleaming as he intercepted the leader with a powerful strike that would have shattered ordinary matter. Instead, his fist passed through a section of armor that momentarily became intangible, throwing him off balance. Physical laws are suggestions to those who walk between worlds, the commander stated, voice echoing as though speaking from multiple locations simultaneously. His counterstrike caught Naruto across the chest, sending him sliding backward. The momentary distraction was enough for the rest of the team to organize their defense. Tommy and Kimberly fell into practiced formation. Their movements synchronized despite years without formal ranger powers. Kira positioned herself near Drive Chen, protecting the scientist while she worked frantically to stabilize dimensional tear using the command center systems. Most impressive to the Earth defenders, however, was the immediate response from Naruto's dimensional companions. Without hesitation or confusion, the three shinobi assessed the situation and deployed their unique abilities. Kakashi's hands blurred through a complex sequence of signs. Earth style. Mud wall. A barrier of solid stone erupted from the command center floor, temporarily blocking a section of advancing yokai. In the same motion, he lifted his headband to reveal his Sharingan eye, immediately analyzing the enemy's movement patterns. Hinata activated her Byakugan, veins bulging around her pale eyes as her vision expanded to perceive the dimensional energies flowing through the chamber. Their chakra networks are unlike anything I've seen, she reported, shifting into the gentle fist stance. But they have vulnerable points where dimensional energy concentrates. Perhaps most surprising was Tayuya's immediate contribution. The former sound ninja extracted a flute from her belt, raising it to her lips with practiced precision. The melody that emerged seemed to distort the air itself, creating visible sound waves that crashed into approaching yokai, disrupting their molecular structure and causing several to collapse into formless masses. Sound-based attacks affect their cohesion, she announced with grim satisfaction. These freaks aren't fully materialized in this dimension. Tommy, momentarily stunned by the display of abilities, quickly adapted his strategy. Kakashi, right, can your earth technique seal the tear? The silver-haired Jonin assessed the dimensional rift with his Sharingan. Temporarily at best. This isn't a physical breach, it's a fundamental instability in dimensional barriers. We need to coordinate, Kimberly suggested, executing a flawless series of kicks that drove back two yokai. Our fighting styles complement each other. Naruto regained his footing, the dragon EMBL. On his chest pulsing with renewed energy. She's right, Kakashi-sensei, you and Tommy take the left flank. Kimberly, support Tayuya from the rear. Hinata, with me on the commander. Kira, protect drive. Chen, the former Yellow Ranger finished, already positioning herself to guard the scientist. Got it. The improvised team reorganized with remarkable efficiency, shinobi and rangers working in tandem against the dimensional invaders. Kakashi and Tommy proved immediately compatible, both veteran warriors with tactical minds and diverse fighting techniques. Kimberly's gymnastic fighting style, created openings that Tayuya exploited with her sound-based attacks. Dr. Chen worked feverishly at the command center console, her fingers flying over alien controls. The dimensional harmonics are destabilizing, she reported. If we don't seal this tear soon, the entire mesa could collapse into a pocket dimension. The yokai commander seemed unperturbed by his troops' struggles, his attention fixed on Naruto. The dragon gem has awakened prematurely, he observed, his armor continuing to shift between states. Emperor Draven will be displeased. Naruto and Hinata engaged him simultaneously. Their movements perfectly synchronized from years of training together. Hinata's gentle fist strikes targeted the energy nodes she perceived with her Byakugan, while Naruto's enhanced Ranger abilities allowed him to match the commander's reality-bending speed. Who is Emperor Draven? Naruto demanded, landing a solid blow that momentarily disrupted the commander's shifting armor. What does he want with the dimensions? Want? The commander laughed, the sound reverberating unnaturally. The Emperor desires restoration, not conquest. All dimensions were once unified, one perfect reality. Tie before the Guardians, betrayal shattered existence into fragments. Hinata struck a critical node in the commander's armor, causing a section to crystallize into a fixed state. If these dimensions were meant to be separate, forcing them together will destroy them all. Purification through unification, the commander replied, unconcerned. The weak dimensions will burn away, leaving only the strongest elements of each reality. A new perfect dimension under our Emperor's guidance. Across the chamber, Tayuya's melody shifted to a more aggressive pattern, sound waves visibly distorting the air around several yokai. Whatever you're planning to do, scientist, do it faster. She called to Dr. Chen. These uglies keep coming. Dr. Chen's expression brightened suddenly. I've isolated the dimensional frequency. If I can invert the harmonic resonance. Her hands flew across the controls, redirecting the command center's residual power into a focused beam that struck the center of the tier. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The tear's edges began to contract, energy surging inward rather than outward. Yokai still emerging found themselves caught in the collapsing vortex. Air forms stretched and distorted as they were pulled back through. No. The commander disengaged from Naruto and Hinata, moving toward the tear with impossible speed. The catalyst process is incomplete. Doctor. Chen looked up in alarm. He's trying to destabilize my containment field. If he disrupts the harmonic frequency. She never finished her warning. The commander reached the tear and used his constantly shifting arms into its center, his armor temporarily synchronizing with the dimensional energies. The tear's contraction halted, then reversed, expanding violently outward with renewed intensity. The convergence will not be denied, the commander declared as energy coursed through his form. Emperor Draven comes. The tear pulsed with blinding light, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When vision returned, the commander stood transformed, his armor now stabilized into crystalline black segments inlaid with circuits of pulsing red energy. More concerning was the object. He now held a gem similar to Naruto's dragon gem, but pulsing with deep violet energy. The shadow Draconite, drive. Chen breathed, recognizing it from the ancient records. He's activated it. The commander raised the shadow gem high, dark energy radiating outward in waves. I am Vexor, herald of shadows, harbinger of the Emperor's return. The gem's energy engulfed him completely, transforming I am further into a towering figure wreathed in darkness. The catalysts must be awakened. The vessels must be filled. With frightening speed, Vexor launched himself toward Hinata, the shadow gem extended before him. Your light calls to darkness, Byakugan wielder. Naruto moved to intercept, but several remaining yokai blocked his path. Kakashi attempted a lightning blade attack, only to have energy absorbed by Vexor's shadow-infused armor. Hinata stood her ground, Byakugan active, her hands flowing through the motions of the protection of the 8 trigrams 64 palms. A dome of chakra formed around her, slicing through the air with precision as Vexor approached. Your dimensional frequency resonates with potential, Vexor observed, unperturbed by her defensive technique. A perfect vessel for catalyzation. The shadow gem pulsed with malevolent energy as Vexor pressed it toward Hinata's protective dome. Where gem and chakra met, reality itself seemed to warp, darkness and light struggling for dominance. Stay away from her, Naruto shouted, his Dragon Ranger armor glowing with intensified energy as he fought desperately through the yokai blocking his path. Tommy and Kimberly coordinated a spinning attack that cleared a path toward Hinata, while Tayuya's melody reached a crescendo that momentarily disrupted Vexor's shadow field. But their efforts came too late. The shadow gem pierced Hinata's protective dome, making contact with her shoulder. She cried out, not in pain but in shock, as violet energy coursed through her body, interacting with her chakra net. Orc in ways visible even to those without Byakugan. Catalyst initiated, Vexor announced with satisfaction. The light awakens in response to shadow. Hinata collapsed to her knees, her body tremble. Inga's competing energies fought for dominance within her. Pale lavender light began to emanate from her eyes and fingertips, growing in intensity with each passing second. Naruto finally broke through, landing beside Hinata and gathering her in his arms. What did you do to her? He demanded, the dragon emblem on his chest pulsing in rhythm with Hinata's glowing form. Vexor stepped back, the Shadow gem now fully integrated into his armor's chest plate. Merely accelerated the inevitable. The convergence requires balanced catalysts, shadow and light, fire and water, earth and air. The Hyuga W, as already resonating with the light gem's frequency. I simply awakened her potential. Dr. Chen's monitoring equipment began emitting urgent alerts. The dimensional tear is collapsing, but not stabilizing. It's going to implode. Then our work here is complete, Vexor declared, dark energy swirling around him as he backed toward the destabilizing tear. The catalyst has been activated. The vessel will soon be filled. We will meet again when the next gem calls. Before anyone could stop him, Vexor and his remaining yokai leapt into the collapsing tear, which sealed behind them with a thunderclap of displaced air. The command center shuddered violently, ancient stones cracking as dimensional energies dissipated. System overload. Dr. Chen called, backing away from consoles that sparked and smoked. We need to evacuate. Quote. Tommy took charge immediately. Everyone out. Now. Kimberly, help drive. Chen with her equipment. Kira, clear a path to the exit. Naruto lifted Hinata, who continued to pulse with lavender light. Her eyes wide but unseeing as energy coursed through her system. "Hang on, Hinata," he murmured. "Stay with us." Kakashi appeared beside him, sharing and analyzing Hinata's condition. "Her chakra network is reconfiguring itself," he observed with clinical precision despite the urgency. "Similar to what happened when you absorbed your gem. We need to get her to safety first," Naruto replied, already moving toward the exit as parts of the ceiling began to collapse. The group evacuated quickly, emerging onto the mesa as the command center entrance collapsed behind them. From outside, they could see energy discharges illuminating the structure from within, multicolored light seeping through cracks in the ancient stonework. "Take cover," Tommy directed, leading them behind a rocky outcropping several hundred yards from the main structure. They barely made it to safety before the command center erupted in a silent explosion of light, not destroying the structure but temporarily rendering it insubstantial, as though it existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The effect lasted only seconds before the building snapped back into normal reality, now dark and seemingly dormant. "Dimensional rebound, drive," Chen explained, checking readings on her surviving equipment. The tear's implosion created a temporary state of quantum uncertainty. Naruto gently laid Hinata on the ground. Her glow now concentrated around her heart. Chiyuya approached cautiously, her earlier hostility tempered by genuine concern. "Is she dying?" the red-haired Kunoichi asked bluntly. "No," Kakashi answered, kneeling beside them. "Her chakra is stabilizing, but reconfiguring into patterns of never seen before." Kimberly joined them, her medical training years of ranger battles prompting her to check Hinata's pulse. Heartbeat steady but rapid, breathing normal. Whatever's happening seems to be integrating rather than harming. As if confirming her assessment, the lavender light surrounding Hinata coalesced into a specific point above her heart, forming a small crystalline structure that rose from her chest and hovered inches above her body. Like the raw crystal of Naruto's dragon gem, this appeared already refined, a multifaceted gem that pulsed with inner light, its color shifting between pale lavender and brilliant white. "The light Draconite, drive," Chen whispered in awe. "It's manifesting spontaneously." Hinata's eyes fluttered open, their pale lavender now containing hints of luminescence. She focused first on Naruto, a small SMI, forming despite her obvious disorientation. "Naruto-kun," she murmured. "I saw everything, all dimensions at once." Her gaze shifted to the hovering gem, which pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. Without hesitation, she reached for it, cupping the crystal between her palms. The moment she touched it, the gem's light intensified dramatically, enveloping her in a cocoon of brilliant white energy that forced everyone to shield their eyes. When the light faded, Hinata stood transformed. Her clothing had been replaced by armor similar to Naruto's Dragon Ranger form, but distinctly different in design. Where his emphasized draconic power, hers evoked celestial grace, primarily white with lavender accents and silver detailing. The chest piece featured a stylized sun motif whose rays extended across her shoulders and upper arms. Her helmet retained elements of her Byakugan, with opalescent lenses that suggested her unique eyes. "The Celestial Guardian Ranger, drive," Chen breathed, recognizing the designation from ancient records they'd reviewed. Hinata examined her transformed state with quiet wonder, her movements fluid and graceful despite the substantial armor. "I can see everything," she said softly. "All dimensions, all possibilities, all connections between worlds." Naruto approached her, his dragon gem responding to her presence with pulses of emerald light that synchronized with her armor's white glow. "Hinata, are you okay?" She nodded, her transformed state diminishing her usual shyness. "Better than okay, Naruto-kun. I understand now. What's happening, what's at stake. The convergence isn't inherently destructive, but Emperor Draven is forcing it to happen prematurely and unnaturally." "Great, another one with magical armor," Chiyuya muttered, though air was more fascination than scorn in her voice. "Anyone else planning to transform into a colorful warrior today?" Tommy surveyed the damaged command center with a pragmatic eye. "Let's save our transformations for after we've regrouped. The center's systems are down, and we need a new base of operations." "Haley's cyberspace," Kira suggested. "It's secure, and she's already set up monitoring equipment." Tommy nodded in agreement. "Good call. We should move quickly. If Vexor could track us to the command center, other locations might be compromised too. Kakashi, who had been silent, Lee assessing their new allies throughout the confrontation, finally spoke. Before we go anywhere, I think a proper exchange of information is warranted. My team and I were pulled through a dimension L-tear while investigating unusual energy patterns in our world. I'd like to understand exactly what we've been dragged into, and how we get back home, Yuya added, arms crossed defensively. No offense to your dimension, but I'm not looking to relocate permanently. Kimberly stepped forward, offering a diplomatic smile. You're right, and you deserve full explanations. But Tommy's correct about our current location being potentially unsafe. Let's move to secure headquarters, then we can brief each other properly. Both Hinata and Naruto released their transformed states, the armor discs, evolving into particles of light that were reabsorbed into their respective gems. The gems themselves became translucent crystal emblems that remained visible on their chests beneath their clothing, pulsing gently with dormant power. As the group moved toward their vehicles, Naruto fell into step beside Kira, who had been uncharacteristically quiet since the battle ended. You okay? He asked, genuine concern in his voice. Kira offered a half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Just processing. Yesterday I was a retired ranger worried about music school applications. Today I'm helping coordinate a multi-dimensional team against cosmic threats. It's a lot. Tell me about it, Naruto agreed with a sympathetic grin. Yesterday I was just a jonin worried about diplomatic assignments. Now I'm some prophesied dragon ranger with gems and catalysts and convergences to deal with. His casual humor broke through her tension, earning a genuine laugh. When you put it that way, I guess we both having unusually complicated weeks. Ahead of them, Kimberly and Tommy led the group, their heads bent together in quiet conversation. Kakashi followed, his visible eye carefully observing everything about this new dimension. Dr. Chen walked beside him, already peppering the jonin with questions about chakra and its dimensional properties. Hinata moved with newfound confidence, occasionally touching the crystal emblem on her chest as though reassuring herself of its presence. Yuya brought up the rear, her posture suggesting she expected attacks from all sides. A team formed by cosmic accident, united by a threat none of them fully understood yet. As they reached the vehicles, the sky above flashed with silent lightning, brief glimpses of other realities bleeding through as the dimensional barriers continued to weaken across the globe. The convergence was accelerating, and now they had 2 Draconite gems activated, with 5 still scattered across dimensions unknown. Haley's cyberspace had been transformed into a surprisingly effective command center. Computer monitors displayed global maps with indicators of dimensional activity, energy readings, and satellite imagery of the mysterious island forming in the Pacific. The cafe's comfortable seating had been rearranged to accommodate the expanded team, with a large central table serving as their briefing area. Haley herself moved efficiently between workstations, her technical expertise evident in the way she integrated Drive Chen's equipment with her own systems. Dimensional scanners online, she announced. I've modified our Ranger energy detection algorithms to track these new power signatures. Tommy stood at the head of the table, his natural leadership reasserting itself despite the presence of other strong personalities. All right, I think we all deserve a proper introduction and explanation. I'm Drive, Tommy Oliver, former Green, White, Red, and Black Ranger. I've been involved with Power Ranger operations for over 20 years. Kimberly Hart, Kimberly continued. Original Pink Ranger, currently working with a specialized UN task force handling unusual phenomena. Kira Ford, former Yellow Dino Thunder Ranger, Kira added. I was Dr. O's student before becoming a Ranger. Dr. Kayla Chen, quantum physicist specializing in dimensional theory, the scientist introduced herself, pushing her glasses up her nose. I've been tracking dimensional anomalies for years, but nothing like what we're seeing now. And I'm Haley Zichter, Haley called from her workstation. Technical advisor to the Dino Thunder team and designer of most of their equipment. Kakashi nodded in acknowledgement. Kakashi Hatake, Jonin of Konohagakure and former 6th Hokage, leader of our village. This is Hinata Hyuga, heiress of the Hyuga clan and Jonin-level shinobi specializing in reconnaissance and precision striking. Hinata bowed slightly, her traditional politeness momentarily reasserting itself despite her recent transformation. "Thank you for helping us," she said sincerely. "And I'm Tayuya," the red-haired kunoichi introduced herself with considerably less formality. "Former sound ninja, currently independent. I specialize in sound-based genjutsu and combat. And most of you know me already," Naruto concluded. Naruto Uzumaki, Jonin of Konoha, future Hokage, and apparently now the Sage Dragon Ranger thanks to this gem. Quote, with introductions complete, Tommy activated a holographic display showing the 7 Draconite gems arranged in a circle. Based on ancient records and what we've learned today, we're facing a crisis involving all dimensions. These 7 gems represent primordial forces that existed before dimensions separated. Dr. Chen stepped forward, her academic passion evident as she elaborated. "According to my research and the records from the command center, all reality was once a single unified dimension. Approximately 10,000 years ago, an event Kai-D the Great Divergence split this unified reality into 7 primary dimensions, from which countless variant dimensions spawned. Like branches from main trunks," Kira suggested, earning an approving nod from the scientist. "Precisely. The Draconite gems were created during this divergence, 7 crystals containing the fundamental energies that maintain separation between dimensions." Kakashi, ever the tactical thinker, focused on practical implications. "And now someone, this Emperor Draven, wants to reverse the process. Force all dimensions back together. That's what the ancient prophecies suggest," Tommy confirmed. "The records mention a convergence event that occurs every 10,000 years, when dimensional barriers naturally thin. During this time, the gems can be used either to reinforce the barriers or to break them down completely. That's where we come in," Naruto added, touching the crystal emblem visible beneath his shirt. "The gems bond with specific individuals, vessels according to that Vexor guy. Together, we're supposed to be able to control how this convergence happens." Hinata's expression grew thoughtful, her fingers lightly touching her own gem. "When I bonded with the light gem, I saw glimpses of all 7 vessels. Some from our world, some from this one, and others I didn't recognize. I saw the same when the dragon gem activated," Naruto confirmed. "You were there, and Kimberly. And Tayuya." The red-haired kunoichi's head snapped up in surprise. "Me? Why would I be connected to some cosmic gem? The gems choose vessels based on resonance patterns, not moral character, drive." Chen explained, earning a glare from Tayuya. "Each gem represents a fundamental aspect of existence: dragon for balance, light for illumination, shadow for mystery, fire for passion, water for adaptation, earth for stability, and air for freedom," Hinata finished, knowledge from her gem flowing through her. "Each vessel must embody these qualities naturally." Tommy returned the conversation to their immediate concerns. According to Haley's scans, dimensional breaches are occurring with increasing frequency worldwide. Most concerning is this island forming in the Pacific. He indicated the satellite imagery showing the landmass's continued growth. If it's forming from pieces of multiple dimensions, it could become a focal point for Draven's forced convergence. "What exactly happens if this convergence occurs unnaturally?" Kakashi asked, his tactical mind already calculating possibilities. Dr. Chen's expression grew grim. "Total dimensional collapse. Instead of harmonious reunification, we'd see violent annihilation as incompatible dimensional frequencies destroy each other. Imagine entire realities being erased from existence, with only fragments surviving to form Draven's new, perfect, dimension. Billions of lives across countless dimensions," Kimberly summarized quietly. "That's what's at stake." A heavy silence fell over the group as they absorbed the magnitude of the threat. After a moment, Naruto spoke up, his natural optimism reasserting itself. "Then we stop him," he stated simply. "We find the remaining gems, we find the right vessels. And we make sure this convergence happens properly, with dimensions staying separate or coming together safely." "Just like that, huh?" Tayuya remarked sarcastically. "Find magical gems across multiple dimensions and save all of reality. No pressure. We've faced worse odds," Kira countered, surprising herself with her own conviction. "Maybe not on this scale, but impose. Cybel's situations are kind of a ranger specialty. And shinobi are trained to accomplish the seemingly impossible," Kakashi added with a hint of humor in his visible eye. Perhaps our teams are more compatible than they first appear. Tommy nodded in agreement. We need to operate on multiple fronts. First priority is locating the remaining gems before Draven's forces can claim them. Some must be in our dimension. Hinata suggested. I sensed connections to Konoha when my gem activated. We should return there. Naruto agreed eagerly. Investigate the dimensional tiers appearing in our world and search for potential vessels. Quote, Dr. Chen looked up from her equipment with concern. Interdimensional travel is becoming increasingly dangerous as the barriers weaken. If you cross dimensions now, there's no guarantee you'll be able to return. We need to risk it, Naruto insisted. We can't just abandon our world to whatever's happening. He's right, Tommy acknowledged. And strategically, dividing our forces makes sense. We can cover more ground, or more dimensions, in this case. The discussion continued, plans forming and reforming as each contributed their expertise. Kakashi, Ai's strategic mind complemented Tommy's experience, while Drive, Chen and Haley collaborated on technical solutions. Hinata's new perceptive abilities proved invaluable in understanding the dimensional energies involved. Throughout the planning session, Kira found her attention repeatedly drawn to Naruto. His natural leadership emerged not through domination but inspiration, offering ideas, listening to others, and maintaining unwavering optimism despite the cosmic stakes. It reminded her of Dr. O at his best, but with a youthful energy all his own. As evening approached, the team broke into all groups to prepare for the next day's missions. Naruto, Hinata, and Kakashi would attempt to return to their dimension to investigate tiers there, while Tommy and Kimberly would travel to Angel G. Rove to retrieve equipment from the original Rangers era. Dr. Chen, Haley, and Kira would maintain operations at the cyberspace, monitoring dimensional activity and coordinating communications. Yuya, to everyone's surprise, volunteered to join the Konoha team. Look, I know my world, and I'm not sitting around in some cafe while reality falls apart, she explained defensively when met with questioning looks. Besides, my sound techniques affected those yokai. Might come in handy. As the others dispersed to make preparations, Kira found herself alone with Naruto near the cafe's small stage area. He was examining her guitar with curious interest, fingers lightly brushing the strings. We have instruments like this in my world, but not exactly the same, he commented as she approached. Do you play? She asked, joining him beside the stage. He shook his head with a self-deprecating smile. No musical talent whatsoever. You heard Yuya earlier, she's the musician among us. She's intense, Kira observed diplomatically. Naruto laughed. That's putting it mildly. She was an enemy once, actually. Part of a team that tried to kidnap my friend Sasuke. I thought she died in that mission. And now she's on your team. That's quite a turnaround. People change, he replied with a shrug. I've seen some of my greatest enemies become allies. Sometimes people just need a second chance. The casual compassion in his statement struck Kira. How easily he accepted former enemies, how readily he believed in redemption. It was refreshingly uncomplicated in a world where she'd grown accustomed to cynicism. You're heading back to your dimension tomorrow, she said, changing the subject. Excited to go home. A complex emotion crossed his features, eagerness mixed with unexpected reluctance. Yes and no. I need to make sure my friends are safe, but... He glanced toward the others across the room, then back to Kira. This mission feels important. Like everything I've done before was preparing me for this. The eternal destiny of the chosen one, Kira teased gently. Dr. O could tell you all about that burden. Naruto's smile returned. At least I'm not alone in it. That's something I've learned over the years. No one accomplishes anything meaningful by themselves. Their conversation was interrupted as Kimberly approached, carrying a small metal case. Sorry to intrude, she said with a knowing smile that made Kira flush slightly. Naruto, Drive, Chen wants to check your gem's energy signature before tomorrow's dimension jump. Right, he nodded, stepping away from the stage. Before leaving, he turned back to Kira. Will you play something for me before I go? I'd like to hear your music. The simple request caught her off guard. Sure, later tonight, maybe, when things calm down. His answering smile was bright enough to momentarily banish thoughts of dimensional collapse and cosmic threats. As he walked away with Kimberly, Kira found herself wondering about the relationships forming within their hastily assembled team, and particularly about the golden-haired shinobi who had literally dropped into her world just days ago. Across the room, Hinata watched the exchange with perceptive eyes, her feelings carefully masked behind a practiced expression of serene attentiveness. The light gem pulsed gently beneath her lavender jacket, respo. Nding to emotional currents only she could fully perceive. Later that night, after strategy sessions had concluded and most of the team had retreated to rest before tomorrow's missions, Kimberly found herself unable to sleep. The small apartment Haley had arranged for her near the cafe felt unfamiliar, and her mind refused to quiet after the day's revelations. Deciding that tea might help, she made her way downstairs to the cafe's kitchen, only to discover she wasn't alone in her insomnia. Naruto sat at the counter, staring contemplatively into a cup of instant ramen. "Late-night snack?" she asked, announcing her presence. He looked up, momentarily startled before offering a warm smile. "Comfort food," he explained. "Reminds me of home. Mind some company." When he nodded, she set about preparing her tea, moving with practiced efficiency through the unfamiliar kitchen. "Nervous about tomorrow?" Naruto considered the question seriously. "Not nervous exactly. More concerned. If the dimensional barriers are weakening everywhere, my friends could be facing these yokai without understanding what they're dealing with." "You care deeply for your people," Kimberly observed, taking a seat beside him at the counter. "That's something we have in common." "Were you always a ranger?" he asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. "Kira mentioned you were one of the first." Kimberly smiled at the memory. "The original team. 5 teenagers with attitude, chosen by a being named Zordon to defend Earth from an alien witch named Rita Repulsa." She laughed softly. "It sounds ridiculous when I say it out loud. No more ridiculous than a demon fox being sealed inside a newborn baby who grows up to save the world from a goddess trying to trap everyone in an eternal dream," Naruto countered with a grin. Their eyes met in shared amusement at the absurdity of their respective histories, a moment of connection between warriors from different dimensions who nevertheless understood each other's extraordinary lives. "What was it like?" Naruto asked, his tone growing more thoughtful. "Becoming a ranger when you were so young?" Kimberly considered her answer carefully. "Terrifying at first, then exhilarating, then normal, somehow. Being a ranger became part of my identity so completely that when I eventually gave up my powers, I felt lost for a long time." "I understand that," Naruto nodded. "My entire life has been defined by being a Jinchuriki, a tailed beast host. Every major decision, every battle, every relationship has been shaped by that reality. And now you're something else too. The Dragon Ranger." He touched the crystal emblem visible beneath his black t-shirt. "It feels both foreign and familiar. Like it's awakening something that was always there." Kimberly recognized the sentiment from her own experiences with various ranger powers over the years. The best power sources don't change who you are, they amplify your true self. "Is that why you kept fighting?" Naruto asked, "even after giving up your original powers?" The question struck closer to home than he could know. Kimberly's fingers wrapped around her teacup, drawing comfort from its warmth. "I tried to have a normal life for a while. Pursued gymnastics professionally, went to college, had relationships that had nothing to do with monsters or world saving. But," Naruto prompted gently when she paused, "but once you've seen the bigger picture, once you know what's really out there and what's really at stake, you can never fully turn away from that responsibility." Her expression grew distant with memory. "So I found other ways to protect people. Less colorful costumes, more diplomatic security clearances, but the same mission." Naruto nodded in understanding. "In my world, there's a saying, once a shinobi, always a shinobi. Sounds like, once a ranger, always a ranger, is equally true." "Some burdens you never put down," Kimberly agreed. "You just get stronger shoulders." They lapsed into comfortable silence, each reflecting on paths taken and responsibilities accepted. After a few minutes, Kimberly spoke again, her tone lighter. "So, you and Hinata. Are you?" Naruto's expression shifted to one of genuine affection mixed with complication. "It's not simple. Hinata confessed her feelings for me years ago, during a battle where she nearly died protecting me. But at the time, I was focused on someone else, and then the war happened, and then peacetime brought different responsibilities. Sounds like the timing was never right, Kimberly observed, thinking of her own complicated history with Tommy. We care for each other deeply, Naruto continued. She's one of my most precious people. But we've never defined exactly what we are to each other. Kimberly sipped her tea thoughtfully. And now you're both dimensional warriors with ancient power gems. That adds another layer of complexity. What about you? Naruto asked, deftly changing the subject. Someone waiting for you back home. A small, sad smile touched her lips. Not currently. My work keeps me traveling too much for anything lasting. There was someone once. She stopped herself, surprised by her willingness to share such personal information with someone she'd known only days. Yet something about Naruto invited confidence, a natural warmth that made conversations flow easily. Tommy, he guessed perceptively. Kimberly's eyebrows rose in surprise. That obvious. The way you work together, Naruto explained. It reminds me of people in my world who have history, comfortable but with edges. Like there's an unfinished conversation always happening beneath the actual conversation. Insightful, she acknowledged with a rueful smile. Yes, Tommy and D.I. were together during our early Ranger days. First loves, high school sweethearts. It ended, not well. We've made peace over the years, become friends and colleagues again, but some doors stay closed once they're shut. Naruto finished for her. Exactly. She studied him with newfound appreciation. You're wiser than you first appear, Naruto Uzumaki. He laughed softly. Don't tell anyone. I've spent years cultivating my reputation as the unpredictable knucklehead ninja. Their quiet conversation continued for another hour, topics ranging from battle strategies to favorite foods. From dimensional theory to childhood memories. Despite their different origins, they discovered numerous parallels in their experiences. Both had grown up without parents, both had found family in their teams. Both carried burdens of power and responsibility from young ages. When they finally bid each other goodnight, Kimberly found herself reflecting on the strange circumstances that had brought this dimensional visitor into their lives. Whatever tomorrow's missions might bring, she was increasingly certain that Naruto's arrival was no cosmic accident but perhaps the universe's way of providing exactly what they needed to face the coming storm. Morning arrived with troubling news. Haley's monitoring systems had detected a significant increase in dimensional activity overnight, venting new tiers forming across the globe, each lasting longer than previous breaches. More concerning was satellite imagery of the mysterious island in the Pacific, which had doubled in size and now showed signs of artificial structures forming along its coastline. It's becoming a base of operations, Tommy observed grimly as the team gathered for final briefings. Draven's forces are establishing a foothold in our dimension. Dr. Chen studied the readings with growing concern. The dimensional frequency distortions are accelerating exponentially. At this rate, we have less than a week before critical barriers begin to fail permanently. Then we stick to the plan, Naruto declared, already dressed for the journey back to his dimension. He wore his standard shinobi attire, black and orange jacket, mesh armor beneath, and his Konoha headband prominently displayed. The dragon gem's emblem remained visible at his chest, pulsing with steady emerald light. Our team returns to the Shin Obi world to locate potential gems and vessels there. Hinata, similarly prepared in her traditional purple and cream battle attire, stood beside him. Her Byakugan would be essential for tracking dimensional energies in their world. Kakashi and Tayuya completed their team, the former quiet and observant as always, the latter impatiently twirling her flute between her fingers. Dr. Chen has modif. IED these communicators to maintain quantum entanglement across dimensions, Haley explained, distributing advanced versions of the wristbands they'd used previously. In theory, they should allow limited communication regardless of dimensional barriers. In theory, Tayuya repeated skeptically. Very reassuring. Tommy ignored her sarcasm, focusing on final instructions. Our team will recover our equipment from the old command center ruins and investigate Angel Grove's dimensional hotspots. Haley, Kira, and Dr. Chen will coordinate from here and monitor global activity. What about the island? Kira asked, indicating the satellite imagery. Shouldn't we be investigating that directly? Too dangerous without proper preparation, Kimberly explained. We need more information and potentially more power before attempting direct confrontation with Draven's headquarters. Dr. Chen approached with a handheld device emitting soft blue light. This dimensional resonator should help stabilize a pathway back to your precise dimension, she told Naruto's team. The coordinates are calibrated based on the unique quantum signature we recorded from your arrival. And how exactly do we open this doorway home? Kakashi inquired, his practical nature evident. The Draconite gems have the ability to create controlled tiers, drive. Chen explained. Naruto and Hinata should be able to synchronize their gems' energies to create a stable passage. Naruto and Hinata exchanged uncertain glances. Neither had fully explored their gems' capabilities, having only recently bonded with the ancient power sources. Trust your instincts, Tommy advised, recognizing their hesitation. Ranger powers often operate on intuitive understanding rather than technical knowledge. After final equipment checks and strategy confirmations, the team moved outside to Haley's private courtyard. The morning sky held an unnatural quality, subtle ripples of color occasionally distorting the blue expanse as dimensional boundaries continued to weaken. Dr. Chen activated her resonator, which projected a three-dimensional model of interweaving energy patterns. This represents the current dimensional configuration. Focus your gem's energy toward these coordinates. She indicated a specific intersection in the holographic display. Naruto and Hinata stepped forward, standing side by side as they concentrated on their respective gems. The dragon and light emblems began to glow with increasing intensity, emerald and white energies pulsing in complementary rhythm. I can feel it, Hinata murmured, her Byakugan activating automatically as she perceived dimensional currents invisible to others. The pathway home, it's there, just beyond conventional perception. Together, Naruto suggested, extending his hand toward her. When their fingers intertwined, the gems' energies surged dramatically, emerald and white light spiraling around them in a double helix pattern. The air before them rippled, then split open in a controlled tear that revealed a shimmering tunnel of light. Unlike the chaotic rifts they'd encountered previously, this opening appeared stable and directed, a carefully crafted pathway between specific dimensional coordinates. It worked, Dr. Chen exclaimed, checking her instruments. Perfectly stable dimensional corridor with minimal quantum disruption. Kakashi stepped toward the opening, his Sharingan activated to analyze the pathway. I can see our destination. A forest clearing approximately 10 miles from Konoha's main gate. We should move quickly, Hinata advised, still maintaining her focus on the dimensional gateway. Even controlled, these passages aren't meant to remain open long. The departure moment had arrived. Naruto turned to the Earth team, his expression serious but optimistic. We'll find the gems in our world and return as soon as possible. Be careful, Kira told him, stepping forward to clasp his forearm in a warrior's grip. Dimensional travel is unpredictable even under the best circumstances. We'll keep the porch light on, Tommy added with a hint of humor. Kimberly approached Hinata, offering a small pink crystal on a chain. A fragment from my original power coin. It might help you track morphin grid energies in your dimension. Hinata accepted the gift with a respectful bow. Thank you. We'll return with answers, and hopefully more allies. Final goodbyes exchanged, the Konoha team moved toward the dimensional corridor. Kakashi entered first, followed by Tayuya, who offered one last sardonic salute before stepping through. Hinata paused at the threshold, exchanging a meaningful glance with Naruto before entering the light tunnel. Naruto lingered momentarily, looking back at the rangers who had welcomed him into their world and their fight. His gaze lingered particularly on Kira and Kimberly. I promise we'll be back, he said with characteristic determination. Believe it. With those words, he stepped through the portal, which collapsed behind him in a flash of harmonized emerald and white energy. The air where it had stood shimmered briefly before settling back to normal. Dimensional passage complete, drive. Chen confirmed, checking readings. They've successfully crossed back to their home dimension. A heavy silence fell over the remaining team members, the courtyard feeling sudden why emptier despite the bright morning sunlight. After a moment, Tommy spoke, his voice carrying the confidence of a veteran leader. All right, our mission begins in 1 hour. Kimberly and I will head to Angel Grove. Haley, continue monitoring global dimensional activity. Kira and Dr. Chen, focus on analyzing that island formation. The clock's ticking. People. Let's move. As the others dispersed to their assignments, Hira remained in the courtyard for a moment longer, her gaze fixed on the empty space where the dimensional portal had stood. Something told her that their separation from the Noah team wouldn't last long. Not because of successful missions, but because the accelerating convergence would soon eliminate the concept of separate dimensions entirely. The question was whether at convergence would come as controlled harmony or catastrophic collapse. And the answer depended on finding 5 more gems and their destined vessels before Emperor Draven's forces could harness their power for destruction. Above, the sky rippled with another dimensional fluctuation, briefly revealing an alien constellation where Earth's familiar blue should be. The boundaries were weakening. Time was running out. The forest clearing materialized around them as they exited the dimensional corridor, the familiar scents and sounds of the shinobi world a welcome relief after days in a foreign dimension. Massive trees towered overhead, their canopy filtering sunlight into dappled patterns across the forest floor. Birds native to Fire Country called to each other in the branches, our songs momentarily pausing as the dimensional travelers fully materialized. Home, Naruto breathed, immediately extending his senses to confirm their location. About 8 miles northeast of Konoha, near the old Anbu training grounds. Kakashi surveyed their surroundings with practiced efficiency, Sharingan active to detect any potential threats. No sign of pursuers or dimensional anomalies in the immediate vicinity. I wouldn't be so sure, Hinata countered, her Byakugan revealing what normal perception could not. The dimensional fabric is strained here too, not tears yet, but thinning in multiple locations. Most concentrated toward Konoha itself. Chiyuya adjusted her sound amplification equipment, device's drive. Chen had modified to detect dimensional frequency fluctuations. Getten. G readings consistent with those yokai bastards. Faint, but present. They've been here. The team moved through the forest with shinobi stealth, avoiding main paths as they approached their village. As they traveled, Naruto briefed them more completely on everything he had learned during his time in the Ranger's dimension. Emperor Draven, the Convergence event, the 7 Draconite gems and their essential role in maintaining or reshaping dimensional barriers. So we're looking for more of these magic rocks and people worthy to use them, Chiyuya summarized bluntly. Any idea what they look like or where they might be? The gems appear differently depending on their elemental aspect, Hinata explained, her knowledge enhanced by her connection to the light gem. Fire would manifest as ruby, water as sapphire, earth as amber, air as diamond, and we still need to find vessels for each, Naruto added. People who naturally embody those elemental aspects. Kakashi considered this information with his characteristic analytical precision. Elemental affinities are common among shinobi. Our chakra nature training might make our world particularly suited for these gems. Their conversation halted abruptly as they crested a hill that offered the first view of Konohagakure in the distance. What should have been a welcome sight of home instead sent a chill through all 4 shinobi. A massive dimensional tear hovered directly above the Hokage monument, its swirling vortex of purple and crimson energy casting an unnatural light across the village. Even from miles away, they could see unusual activity, shinobi moving in defensive formations, civilians being evacuated from certain districts, and what appeared to be combat near the tear itself. No, Naruto whispered, the dragon gem pulsing in response to his heightened emotions. They've already found Konoha. Without discussion, all 4 shifted to maximum speed, chakra enhancing their movements as they raced toward their endangered home. Trees blurred past as they pushed their bodies to the limit, covering ground that would take ordinary travelers hours to traverse in mere minutes. As they approached the village outskirts, they encountered the first evidence of interdimensional incursion, patches of forest that had transformed into environments from other dimensions. A section of bamboo grove that hadn't existed the week before. A small crater filled with blue crystalline formations that hummed with alien energy. A pond whose water flowed upward instead of down, defying gravity itself. Reality bleeding, Hinata observed grimly. Just like Dr. Chen described, the village gates came into view, heavily guarded by Anbu operatives and regular jonin who appeared tense and exhausted. Upon recognizing the approaching team, particularly Kakashi and Naruto, their posture shifted from defensive to relieved. Hataki-sama, Uzumaki-san. The guard captain saluted sharply. Thank the sage you've returned. The Seventh Hokage has been coordinating our defense, but these creatures. Yokai. Naruto supplied. We've encountered them before. Where's Shikamaru? Command center in the Hokage Tower, the captain reported promptly. We've established a perimeter around the dimensional tear, but more of those things emerge every few hours. Any casualties? Kakashi asked, his tone professionally detached despite his obvious concern. Minor injuries only, thankfully. The creatures seem more interested in securing territory than causing harm. They've occupied the northeast quadrant and established some kind of energy collection array. Naruto and Hinata exchanged concerned glances. Energy collection meant catalysts, the same process Vexor had attempted to initiate with the Shadow Gem. We need to see the Hokage immediately, Naruto declared, already moving through the gates. The village interior revealed more signs of dimensional disturbance, buildings partially phased into alternate states of matter. Streets that occasionally shifted configuration, and most concerning, civilians displaying symptoms of dimensional exposure. Some moved in slow motion, others appeared slightly transparent, and a few seemed to exist in multiple positions simultaneously, their forms blurring as reality struggled to define their exact location. The dimensional bleeding is more advanced here than in the Ranger's world, Hinata observed. Her Byakugan perceiving the full extent of the disruption. The barriers must be naturally thinner in our dimension. The Hokage Tower stood relatively unchanged amidst the chaos, protected by powerful sealing techniques that Naruto recognized as Shikamaru's work. Inside, they found a command center operating at full capacity, communications specialists coordinating defense teams, medical nin treating the dimensionally affected, and intelligence officers mapping dimensional disturbances across the 5 great nations. At the center of this organized chaos stood Shikamaru Nara, the 7th Hokage. His characteristic expression of bored annoyance now replaced by focused intensity as he directed Konoha's response to the unprecedented crisis. Troublesome as always, Naruto. He greeted them without looking up from the map table. Disappear for days during a dimensional crisis, then show up with Kakashi, Hinata, and, he paused, finally raising his head to stare at their 4th member. Tayuya of the Sound 4. Unexpected. Still sharp as ever. Shadow boy, Tayuya replied with a smirk. Surprised you remember me. Hard to forget someone you killed, Shikamaru responded dryly. Or thought you killed, apparently. Dimensional displacement, she explained with a casual shrug. Been stuck between worlds since our fight. Until recent events started thinning the barriers. Shikamaru accepted this extraordinary explanation with remarkable equanimity, his brilliant mind already incorporating this new information into his strategic calculations. That tracks with our observations. Dimensional anomalies began appearing approximately 2 weeks ago, accelerating significantly 3 days ago when that tear opened above the monument. We know what's causing it, Naruto stated, stepping forward, and how to potentially stop it. Over the next hour, the return team briefed Shikamaru and his senior advisors on everything they had learned, the Convergence event, Emperor Draven's plans, the Draconite gems, and their alliance with the Power Rangers of another dimension. Naruto and Hinata demonstrated their transformed states briefly, the Dragon A.N.D. Celestial Guardian Ranger armors materializing in flashes of emerald and white light that left the assembled shinobi leaders momentarily speechless. Dimensional super armor powered by ancient crystals. Shikamaru summarized when they had finished. Fighting an emperor from before dimensions existed who wants to collapse all reality into his perfect world. He sighed deeply. Why is it never nothing simple like a tax dispute or irrigation rights? Because you die of boredom, Naruto replied with a grin that momentarily lightened the tense atmosphere. Shikamaru's tactical mind was already processing implications. You said there are 7 gems total, and 5 remain unfound. The vision you both experienced suggested some vessels would be from our world. We believe at least 2 more gems are here, Hinata confirmed. Fire and water, based on what the light gem has shown me. And Tayuya is potentially one of the vessels, Kakashi added, earning a scowl from the red-haired Kunoichi. Still not convinced about that part, she muttered, though her hand unconsciously moved to her flute, the instrument through which she channeled her most powerful techniques. Shikamaru studied the map table. where markers indicated dimensional anomalies across the shinobi world. There's a pattern to these disturbances. Highest concentration here in Fire Country, but significant activity near the Land of Water's coastal regions and in the volcanic areas near the Earth Country border. Elemental affinities, Kakashi observed. The gems may be drawn to locations that resonate with their nature. We need to investigate these hotspots immediately, Naruto declared. If Draven's forces are already here, they'll be searching for the gems too. I can spare limited personnel, Shikamaru warned. Most of our forces are containing the yokai incursion and protecting civilians from dimensional effects. We'll split up, Naruto decided. Hinata and I will investigate the volcanic region for the fire gem. Kakashi and Tayuya can check the coastal disturbances for the water gem. Actually, Hinata interjected, her Byakugan active as she studied the map. I'm detecting unusual energy patterns within Konoha itself, centered on the Hokage monument, directly beneath the dimensional tear. All eyes turned to the illuminated map, where the monument glowed with an intensity that hadn't been noticed before. Shikamaru's expression sharpened with sudden understanding. The monument was constructed on a natural chakra convergence point, he explained. The first Hokage chose the location specifically because it amplified his wood-style abilities. If dimensional barriers are weakening, then ancient powers sealed within the earth might be awakening, Kakashi finished. Including, potentially, a Draconite gem. Quote, before they could discuss further, alarms blared throughout the command center. A communications specialist rushed to Shikamaru's side, her expression urgent. Hokage-sama, the yokai forces are advancing from the northeast quadrant. They've breached the first defensive perimeter and appear to be heading directly for the monument. They know, Naruto realized. The dragon gem pulsing with increased intensity. They can sense the gem awakening. Shikamaru's decision came instantly, years of strategic thinking condensed into seconds. Naruto, Hinata, say. Cure whatever's activating at the monument. Your dimensional powers may be our best defense if it's indeed another gem. Kakashi, coordinate our Jonin response to the yokai advance. Tayuya. He paused, measuring the former enemy with calculating eyes. Your sound techniques affected these creatures before. She nodded sharply. Disrupts their molecular cohesion. They're not fully materialized in this dimension. Then you're with me on the eastern perimeter. We'll create a diversion to draw their main force away from the monument. With plans established, the team moved to their assignments with practiced efficiency. As Naruto and Hinata prepared to head toward the monument, Shikamaru caught Naruto's arm briefly. When this is over, the Hokage said quietly, you're explaining exactly how you ended up with magical armor from another dimension. Preferably over something stronger than Naruto grinned at his longtime friend. Deal. But fair warning, it involves more troublesome destiny than even you're used to. Shikamaru's answering expression was somewhere between resignation and amusement. With you, it always does. The base of the Hokage monument had been evacuated. Barriers established to keep civilians away from the increasingly unstable dimensional tear overhead. As Naruto and Hinata approached, both in their transformed states to maximize their protective capabilities, they could feel the resonance between their gems and whatever power was awakening within the stone face of the first Hokage. There's definitely something responding to our presence, Hinata observed. Her celestial guardian visor enhancing her already formidable Byakugan. A concentration of energy unlike anything I've seen before. Part chakra, part dimensional force, part something else entirely. The Dragon Ranger armor amplified Naruto's natural abilities, allowing him to sense the energy currents flowing through the monument. It's trying to manifest, he agreed. But Summit, Hing's blocking it, like it's trapped between dimensions. They reached the stone-carved face of Hashirama Senju, the legendary first Hokage whose cells still represented the pinnacle of biological power in their world. Up close, they could see subtle changes in the stone, veins of crystalline material that pulsed with ruby light running through the rock-like blood vessels. The fire gem, Hinata breathed, recognizing the signature from her visions. It's becoming part of the monument itself. Naruto placed his armored hand against the stone, immediately feeling intense heat radiating from within. It's responding to us, but it needs a vessel, someone with natural fire affinity who embodies passion and transformation. Like me, came a voice from behind them. They turned to find a kunai. Kai approaching through the dimensional distortion, a woman with long black hair and piercing red eyes that reflected the ruby light pulsing through the monument. Despite the chaos surrounding them, she moved with confident grace, her traditional red and white clothing marking her as a member of an ancient clan. Kurenai-sensei, Hinata greeted her former teacher with surprise. You shouldn't be Air. The dimensional energies are dangerous. Kurenai Yuhi smiled calmly, unperturbed by the swirling energies or their transformed appearances. I'm exactly where I need to be, Hinata. The monument has been calling to me for days. Dreams of fire and rebirth, visions of dimensions beyond our own. She approached the stone face, raising her hand toward the crystalline veins. Since Asuma died, I've lived half a life, focused on raising our daughter, on teaching, on surviving. But this, she touched the pulsing crystal, which flared brilliantly at her contact. This awakens something I thought I'd lost forever. Purpose, passion, the will to fight for more than mere survival. Naruto's Dragon Ranger instincts recognized the truth in her words. You're the vessel for the fire gem, he stated with certainty. That's why it's responding to you. The fire within illuminates the path forward, Hinata quoted, knowledge flowing from her light gem. Passion tempered by wisdom creates transformation without destruction. Kurenai nodded, a serenity in her expression despite the chaos surrounding them. I've always specialized in genjutsu, illusions that transform perception. Fire has been my elemental affinity. But I channeled it through subtlety rather than brute force. She smiled ruefully. Perhaps that's why the gem calls to me, fire that illuminates rather than simply destroys. Before they could discuss further, a massive explosion rocked the village's eastern district. In the distance, they could see Shikamaru's shadow techniques expanded to enormous size, battling alongside Ta. Yuya's sound-based attacks against advancing yokai forces. They're buying us time, Naruto realized. We need to activate the gem now, before the main yokai force breaks through. Kurenai stepped forward with quiet determination. Tell me what to do. Hinata and Naruto exchanged glances, both accessing the knowledge flowing from their respective gems. Place your hands directly on the central crystal formation, Hinata instructed. Open yourself completely to its energy. Accept its purpose and power without reservation. The transformation might be intense, Naruto warned. But we'll be right here with you. Kurenai approached the pulsing crystalline formation, her red eyes reflecting its ruby light. For Asuma, for Mirai, for all our futures, she whispered, pressing both palms firmly against the largest crystal vein. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Ruby light exploded outward from the contact point, engulfing Kurenai completely. The stone around her hands cracked and shattered, revealing a perfectly formed fire Draconite gem that rose from the monument's surface to hover before her. Unlike the raw, unformed crystal that Naruto had initially found, or the refined gem that had manifested for Hinata. Kurenai's fire gem appeared as a multifaceted ruby stylized in the shape of a phoenix, its wings spread in eternal flight. The gem pulsed with internal light that synchronized with Kurenai's heartbeat, responding to her life force. When Kurenai opened her eyes, they glowed with the same ruby light as the gem. She reached for it without hesitation, cupping the phoenix crystal between her palms. I accept this responsibility, she declared, her voice resonating with newfound power. The fire gem awakens. Crimson light engulfed her completely, forming a koku-en of energy that expanded outward in a shockwave that temporarily disrupted the dimensional tear above. Within the cocoon, Kurenai's form shifted and transformed, the gem's ancient power reshaping her into its chosen vessel. When the light faded, she stood transformed. Her ranger armor evoked both flames and rebirth, primarily deep red with orange and gold accents that seemed to flicker with actual fire when she moved. The chest piece featured a phoenix motif whose wings extended across her shoulders and upper back. Her helmet retained elements of her identity with a stylized visor that suggested her distinctive red eyes. Now enhanced with the power of dimensional sight, the Phoenix Flame Ranger, Hinata identified her, knowledge flowing from the light gem. Kurenai examined her transformed state with quiet wonder, feeling the fire gem's power flowing through her chakra network, enhancing and refining her natural abilities. I can perceive the dimensional barriers, she said softly. See where they're weakening, where they need reinforcement. That's 3 gems activated, Naruto noted, the dragon emblem on his chest pulsing in harmony with both Hinata's light and Kurenai's fire. 4 more to find. Their moment of triumph was short-lived. Above them, the dimensional tear suddenly expanded dramatically, its circumference doubling in seconds as reality itself screamed in protest. Through the widened opening emerged a figure they recognized from shared visions, Vexor, Herald of Shadows, now fully empowered by the shadow gem integrated into his armor. How predictable! Vexor's voice boomed across the monument plaza. The vessels gather, drawn like moths to cosmic flame. Behind him came dozens of elite yokai warriors, their forms more stable and defined than those they had encountered previously. Vexor, Naruto acknowledged, stepping forward protectively. Still doing Draven's dirty work across dimensions. The Shadow Herald laughed, the sound distorting reality around him. You mistake service for partnership, Dragon Ranger. Emperor Draven approaches ascension, the convergence accelerates with each gem awakened. We won't let you force dimensions together unnaturally, Hinata declared. The light gem's power illuminating the area around her in direct opposition to Vexor's shadow energy. You misunderstand your role, Vexor replied, descending to stand before them. You are not obstacles but catalysts. Each gem activation thins the barriers further, regardless of your intentions. The convergence comes not despite your efforts, but because of them. This revelation struck all 3 rangers with chilling implication. Could their very attempts to stop Draven be playing into his plans? Then we'll find another way, Naruto declared, unwilling to accept defeat. These gems existed before Draven, before the dimensions separated. Their true purpose can't be destruction. Perspective, Vexor dismissed. The Emperor sees beyond your limited understanding. The one perfect dimension approaches rebirth. He raised his shadow-infused hand, and the yokai behind him moved into attack formation. Now, surrender the fire gem, or watch this village burn in dimensional fire. Kurenai stepped forward, her newly acquired phoenix flame armor radiating determination. I just found my fire again, she replied, hands already forming seals for a technique. I'm not surrendering it to anyone. The battle erupted with explosive force. Vexor launched shadow projectiles that distorted space itself where they passed, while his yokai forces engaged in coordinated attacks designed to separate the 3 rangers. Naruto, Hinata, and Kurenai fought with the enhanced abilities granted by their gems, their different fighting styles complementing each other in fluid teamwork. Kurenai's phoenix flame powers proved especially effective against the shadow-based attacks, her fire techniques amplified and refined through the gem's ancient energy. Where ordinary flames would have simply burned, her phoenix fire created points of dimensional reinforcement, temporarily stabilizing reality where her attacks landed. The fire gem counteracts shadow energy, she called to her teammates. Understanding flowing through her connection to the gem. It reinforces dimensional boundaries through controlled transformation. Naruto nodded in understanding, the dragon gem providing similar insights. Focus on the tear itself. If we can stabilize it, we can prevent more yokai from entering our dimension. The 3 rangers coordinated their attacks, dragon, light, and fire energies combining in a harmonized beam directed at the dimensional tear above. The effect was immediate. The tear's edges began to stabilize, its violent fluctuations calming as the misbalanced energies reinforced the natural dimensional barriers. Vexor howled in rage, his shadow energy surging to counter their efforts. The convergence will not be denied. Emperor Draven comes. The conflict between opposing forces, rangers working to stabilize dimensions, Vexor striving to accelerate their collapse, created a cascading effect that rippled outward across Konoha. Buildings momentarily phased between states of existence, streets rearranged themselves in impossible configurations, and the sky above displayed glimpses of other dimensions bleeding through thinning barriers. In the eastern district, Shikamaru and Tayuya felt the dimensional disturbance intensify. The shadow user's techniques began interacting strangely with the weakened reality, creating shadow bridges temporarily connected to other dimensions. Tayuya's sound attacks similarly distorted, opening brief auditory passages to other worlds. Something's happening at the monument, Shikamaru observed, his strategic mind quickly assessing the situation. The dimensional energies are destabilizing completely. Tayuya's equipment emitted urgent alerts, the dimensional frequency monitors drive. Chen had provided reaching critical levels. This isn't just destabilization, she realized, her expertise with sound-based dimensional manipulation providing unexpected insight. It's synchronization, multiple dimensions beginning to vibrate at identical frequencies. Meaning what exactly? Shikamaru demanded, binding another yokai in his shadow technique. Meaning the dimensions are starting to merge, she explained grimly. Starting right here, right now. At the monument, the three rangers maintained their combined energy beam despite Vexor's increasingly desperate attacks. The dimensional tear continued to stabilize, its edges becoming defined and controlled rather than chaotic and expanding. It's working, Hinata called, her celestial vision perceiving the dimensional frequencies shifting toward stability. Keep it up, Naruto encouraged, channeling more of his chakra through the dragon gem. Vexor, recognizing imminent defeat, made a final desperate move. He channeled all his Ao energy into a concentrated beam aimed not at the rangers but at the tear itself, not to expand it but to collapse it violently. If I cannot have this gateway, neither shall you, he declared. Emperor Draven will find another path. The shadow beam struck the partially stabilized tear, causing catastrophic disruption to its already fragile structure. Instead of expanding or contracting normally, the tear began to implode, creating a vacuum effect that pulled dimensional energy inward with devastating force. He's creating a dimensional singularity, Kurenai warned, her fire gem providing understanding of the catastrophic process. If it collapses completely, the feedback will destroy half the village, Naruto finished, the dragon gem showing him the potential outcome. We have to contain it. Without hesitation, all three rangers redirected their energy beams, creating a triangular containment field around the collapsing tier. Vexor, seeing his opportunity, retreated with his remaining yokai forces, disappearing into shadow rifts that formed momentarily in the chaos. I can't hold this much longer, Hinata warned, the strain of channeling such power evident in her voice. The dimensional energies are too unstable. We need to redirect it, Naruto decided, the dragon gem providing inspiration. Not contain it, but channel it somewhere it can be safely released. He abandoned training ground beyond the village, Kurenai suggested. No civilians, minimal infrastructure. Can we move a dimensional singularity? Hinata questioned, struggling to maintain her portion of the containment field. Not move it, Naruto clarified, the dragon gem's knowledge flowing through him. Redirect its emergence point. The tear exists partially outside normal space-time. We can change where it connects to our dimension. Understanding his plan, all three rangers adjusted their energy beams, creating a complex weave of dragon, light, and fire energy that enveloped the collapsing tear completely. With focused intent, they visualized the new emergence point, the abandoned training ground miles from the village center. The singularity resisted at first, dimensional energies fighting their manipulation. Then, with a thunderous crack that echoed across dimensions, the tear disappeared from above the monument, only to reappear exactly where they had directed it. The resulting implosion created a massive crater in the uninhabited training ground, but caused no civilian casualties or village damage. Exhausted, all three rangers dropped to their knees, their armors flickering as their energy reserves depleted. The gems continued to pulse steadily against their chests, however, integrated permanently with their life forces. We did it, Naruto breathed, allowing his transformation to fade back to civilian form. We stabilized the tear and saved the village. Hinata and Kurenai similarly released their transformed states, conserving their remaining energy. The three gems, dragon, light, and fire, continued to pulse in synchronized rhythm, visible as crystal emblems on their respective bearers. But Vexor escaped, Hinata noted, her Byakugan scanning for any remaining shadow energy. And with him, the shadow gem. 4 gems activated, 3 on our side, Kurenai summarized, her teacher's analytical mind already calculating implications. 3 still missing, Naruto nodded thoughtfully, and Vexor's words about the gems actually accelerating the convergence. We need to understand exactly what these gems were designed to do. Before they could discuss further, their communicators activated, the quantum entangled devices provided by Dr. Chen. Kira's voice came through with surprising clarity despite spanning dimensions. Naruto, Hinata, do you copy? We've got major developments here. The island in the Pacific has expanded dramatically, and were detecting massive energy readings consistent with multiple Draconite gems. "We copy," Naruto responded, relieved that the communication technology functioned across dimensions. "We've secured the Fire Gem and a new ranger, Kurenai Yuhi, the Phoenix Flame Ranger." "That's 4 gems accounted for," Kira confirmed. "But we've got bigger problems. Dr. Chen's analysis of the island shows it's not just expanding, it's becoming a dimensional nexus point. All 7 primary dimensions are beginning to converge there." Emperor Draven's headquarters, Hinata surmised. "The focal point for his forced convergence." "Exactly," Kira agreed. "And there's more. Tommy and Kimberly found records in N. Gel Grove suggesting the final 3 gems are already there, on the island. Water, earth, and air, all waiting to be activated." Naruto exchanged significant glances with Hinata and Kurenai. "Then that's where we need to go next. All of us, together." "That's the plan," Kira confirmed. "Tommy's calling in every former ranger who can be reached. We're gathering an interdimensional army to assault the island before Draven can complete the convergence. We'll return as soon as possible," Naruto promised. "With reinforcements." As the communication ended, the 3 gem bearers looked out across Konoha, where the dimensional effects were gradually stabilizing now that the tear had been redirected and contained. In the distance, they could see Shikamaru and Tayuya approaching, leading a contingent of shinobi who had successfully repelled the yokai invasion. "More interdimensional battles," Kurenai remarked with a small smile. "And here I thought retirement from active service would be boring." "The final confrontation approaches," Hinata observed, the light gem providing glimpses of possible futures. "All paths converge on that island." Naruto's expression remained determined, dragon gem pulsing steadily against his chest. "Then that's where we'll make our stand. Rangers and shinobi together, protecting all dimensions from Draven's distorted vision." Above them, the sky gradually returned to its natural blue. Dimensional fluctuations temporarily stabilized by their combined efforts. But all 3 gem bearers could sense the truth. This was merely a brief respite. The Convergence continued to accelerate across all dimensions, drawing them inexorably toward a final confrontation where the fate of all reality would be decided. The gathering storm approached its climax. And they would need every ally, every gem, every fragment of ancient knowledge to weather what came next. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.